Hello, guys, and welcome to the beginning of the Sprint 2 tournament. Many teams competed last week, and many of them suffered the taste of defeats. Many of them are going to come back for revenge, and we'll see if they can manage to upend Super Cow Powers, our reigning champion from last week, who is starting this tournament off versus Dumb Collectors.
Ooh, this is a map. I like this map.
This map has a lot of balls in it, so we'll see how they
maze.
navigate through it.
There's also a ton of currents forcing robots away from their headquarters. I think a lot of headquarter camping last tournament. This one should have less.
Yeah, we tried preventing some headquarter camping by implementing headquarter damage. We'll see if this ends up coming to effect.
And it looks like Super Cow Powers pretty much has control of the middle. And around 3/4 of the map.
It looks like the top half of the map has been controlled by Super Cow Power, so we'll see if he manages to invade the bottom right corner of the map.
And Dumb Collectors is kind of just keeping their robots in the bottom right corner. I don't really know what that's about. I think
the other two headquarters are pretty much blocked off, getting like almost instantly killed. And then I think it's gonna be hard for Dumb Collectors to find a way to win this game because they're getting starved out of any resources. Looks like all of the robots have been killed.
And still no islands have been collected yet, but it looks like Super Cow Powers pretty much has control of the entire map.
Yeah, we'll see if he manages to build up some resources, build some acres, and send out the carriers. Looks like we're starting
one island, two islands.
Wait, really? Oh, the second island's at the bottom. Yeah, there's another headquarter. It looks like there's another storm. It's a bit difficult to find these islands just because movement is blocked by your own robots, but in a clean 700 rounds, Super Cow Powers pulls it out. And now we're on to tic-tac-toe. I enjoyed this map just because I made it.
I think it's a great map.
I think it's a great map too. But you see there's some quick aggression.
No one's really going for the middle here, mostly the outer squares.
Dumb Collector seems to keep some launchers next to his headquarters, just attacking the cloud, waiting to see if anyone goes in. But the Super Cow Powers is playing patiently. Now they're finally moving in and they decimate the forest. It looks like Dumb Collector's strategy to defending that cloud next to its top right headquarters did not pay off. And once again, Dumb Collectors has been wiped out by Super Cow Powers. We'll see if they manage to find the clouds. They're a bit hidden. They're right next to the clouds. I mean, the islands.
The islands.
Yeah.
See if they can capture some islands here. There's a lot of Super Cow Powers robots. Still no islands captured. Oh, there's one.
We see Super Cow Powers just all of their launches just randomly attack clouds if they can. So we see a lot of attacks even though there's no robots on Dumb Collector's side. Now we're on to Spiral. Super Cow Powers aiming to sweep this, and Super Cow Powers is evading the middle, but
Dumb Collectors has the advantage right now. A lot of robots, I think they're getting stuck kind of on the
Dumb Collectors retreats a bit. And Super Cow Powers takes the offensive now that they go away. It looks like they've taken control of the bottom right headquarter area. We'll see if they go to the top right, and it looks like they are, and the carriers have been decimated, and once again, Super Cow Powers, the clean launcher micro just wipes out Dumb Collectors.
I really like the randomly attack the cloud strategy. I think it adds a lot of like visually pleasing like effects to the game.
I'm not sure I can say the same.
I don't know. I like the lines.
But it's a valid strategy. Like if you can't tell that someone's in there and there's no enemies visible, you might as well use your attack. There's no punishment to just attacking a cloud randomly. So if that's something you're not implementing, that's an easy thing you can do right now.
And Super Cow Power sweeps this one 3-0.
Now we have Om versus Kryptonite. On to Maze.
Maze, my favorite map. A lot of currents here. Let's see who can take control of the middle first. I really think this is a big like pathfinding map, or at least I tried to make it that way.
That's our favorite map.
Yeah.
We see Kryptonite seems to be taking control in the middle, but both teams seem to be largely remaining on their own sides. We see that Kryptonite seems to be advancing and seems to have most of the control over the middle headquarter from Omnom. We'll see if the Omnom seems to be trying to defend it, but it's been overrun by units.
Omnom does have one island captured. Oh no, let's switch to Kryptonite. I was gonna say that might be a big indicator in the tiebreakers if
Yeah,
no one got control of the islands.
we'll see if Kryptonite manages to place any anchors, but it looks like they have a few islands and they quickly get an island victory. Wow, all of those islands were in quick succession.
Now we're on to tic-tac-toe. Let's-
Kryptonite goes towards the middle quickly, but Omnom seems to be staying more towards their own side, advancing towards the bottom left with their few skirmishes. Omnom has a lot of launches on the left, and it looks like Kryptonite is kind of getting overrun. We'll see if Omnom manages to invade the top right corner of the tic-tac-toe and win the game, as there's a bit of lag due to all the attacking. Well, we see that Omnom has a lot of control over the center. They've already captured one island. We'll see if they can manage to capture 2 more islands to close out the game. And it looks like Kryptonite once again. They've been on the back foot this match. We'll see if they manage to tie it up, and it looks like Omnom does tie it up.
On to Spiral. Let's see who can take control of the middle here first.
Both
we
teams
see-
seem to be largely avoiding it, which is a correct call actually, as there's like
Really?
no islands, no resources in the middle. So there's no reason to defend it if you think about it.
Hmm.
It looks like Kryptonite seems to have a solid defense. We'll see if Omnom manages to launch an offensive attack. Kryptonite advancing towards the middle, now a wave of launchers that's now attacking the bottom left, but it's been wiped out. Kryptonite is sending reinforcements. We'll see if that's enough. And it looks like it might be, as a lot of Omnom's units toward the bottom left are at low health. We'll see if they can manage to be finished off as they start retreating. A carry on the bottom right is running away for its life all alone, but can do nothing as it's wiped out by a wave of launchers. We'll see if they can manage to do anything in the top left, but it looks like they've been decimated as they just had too many carriers that were unable to defend themselves. And once again, see the attacking the clouds whenever they can. And we'll see if they can manage to focus on capturing islands now that their focus on attack has succeeded. Although it does look like they have a lot of units on the right side of the map. It looks like after 2,000 rounds, they ended up winning due to the island tiebreaker, but not managing to reach 75% of the islands in time.
Oh, new map, Divergence.
Divergence has like 3 paths to go: the top path, the middle path,
Looks
and the
like
bottom path.
Kryptonite won the first skirmish. Is now pushing towards Omnom's headquarters. See, Kryptonite has the robot advantage right now. I think you see 2 launchers over towards the headquarters. Omnom trying to defend, but the launchers just pretty much dominating there.
One lonely character from one lonely carrier from Omnom just advancing around the entire map, doing nothing, crying in misery as all of his teammates have been decimated.
And Kryptonite with just the constant outpour of launchers straight towards Omnom's headquarters. They pretty much have this match. But let's see if they can capture some islands and finish it off.
Yeah, it seems that on smaller maps, Kryptonite is still focusing on robot advantage over capturing islands. We'll see if that strategy pans out against other teams, but for now, Kryptonite wins 3-1. Now we have Dage versus Postmodern.
Back
On
to
to
Maze.
The 2 headquarters in the middle of Maze are actually pretty close together, which means
Yeah.
like the early combat is super important for Maze actually. And we see that's roughly even, although Postmodern is advancing a slight bit. They have a lot of carriers collecting resources. And it looks like Postmodern's carrier might be slightly better, and they might have more resources and more robots at this point of time. We'll see if they manage to use their resource advantage to attack Dage, and it looks like Dage's middle headquarter has been overrun. We'll see if they manage to defend their top left and bottom left, but it's looking unlikely against this wave of robots from Postmodern. We see if they have like 300 robots, and it keeps advancing. Well, Dage is down to 0 now. We also see one interesting strategy from Postmodern. Their robots linger like around the attack radius of the headquarter to still surround it and instantly kill any robots, but avoiding the headquarter damage. On to
On the
tic-tac-toe.
tic-tac-toe.
The carriers are mutually collecting resources. Not that much early combat. But we'll see that now that they found each other, we'll see if they manage to advance and play.
Again, we see the attack clouds randomly strategy. I wonder where that came from. I really like it. I think it's pretty like enterprising.
Yeah. I would assume like a lot of the teams probably got it from each other from the scrim server.
Mm.
And we see that now Dage has won like a lot of the early combats, and as a result, Postmodern's on the back foot.
You can see in the bottom left, Dage robots just focusing fire on the headquarters.
It does nothing, but I guess you might as well attack it. If they don't check the robot type before deciding to attack enemy robots, that this might be the result. I'm not sure if that's what's going on, but it looks like it because you're not attacking any others here. But in the end, Dage manages to capture 3 of the islands to tie it up, and now we're on to Spiral. Postmodern taking an early offensive with a flame from launches on the top left, but that was quickly overrun, maybe not the best strategy. While Dage goes towards the bottom and loops around with a huge wave of launches that keeps expanding. It looks like Dage is focusing on mana economy, and their wave of launches is just overrunning Postmodern. And then we'll see if Dage once again manages to quickly capture 3 islands and close out another game. It looks like they've already gotten 2. We'll see if they do get a 3rd in under 2,000 rounds. And we'll see if Dage manages to close the series out.
Quick skirmish in the middle. It looks like Dage came up on top. Dage with a lot of carriers looking to gain a lot of resources here. It looks like they're going to win the resources battle early on. Let's see if Postmodern can come back.
Postmodern had a carrier hiding in the cloud for a while, but as soon as they left, it got zapped by a launcher. Maybe it should have tried hiding in the cloud, gathering up resources and eventually attacking by itself. But alas, Postmodern did not manage to have one carrier defends its lonely territory. And Dage once again overruns it. Postmodern with a strong opening, but Dage managing to come back and almost reverse sweep. If Dage didn't, if they lost the second game, but they didn't. And Dage wins 3-1, and they actually won the last game too. And Dage will be moving on. And now we have your anchors on another island versus past winner Wololo. With early fights towards the middle, and also your anchor is on another. Okay, I can't say that. Your anchor is advancing towards the top with some carriers that are exploring. We'll see if that exploration manages to end up doing anything, but without any amplifiers, that carriers may not have been able to communicate the results of exploration. Your anchor is advancing towards Wololo's middle headquarters. We'll see if they manage to do anything with the rest of the map, as your anchor still has some carriers invading like the top right of the map. And it looks like this strategy is kind of paying off as your anchor is managing to control the top right side of the map slightly. Wololo is trying to defend, but a low number of units is not boding well for them. And your anchor manages to capture the islands while Wololo is focused on defending.
Now on the tic-tac-toe, we see early skirmishes on the left. Let's see who can take the early win. Looks like your anchor now controls most of the map. Let's see if Wololo can make a like mid-game push.
Yeah, well, some of Wololo's units seem to be getting stuck near the bottom of the map. That might be a pathfinding issue, I'm not sure, but a lot of those turns were wasted at the beginning of the game, and that ended up making a difference as you anchor more efficient, it seems, and able to take control of this map again. And we'll see if they manage to close out the game of islands, and they already have 2, and they get 3. We'll see if your anchor is able to sweep an early offensive towards the middle of a group of launches, but Wololo counterattacks and manages to dispatch it. We'll see your anchor is invading the bottom right. We'll see if Wololo manages to pull out a defense in the top right to do anything, but it looks like your anchor is once again having a resource advantage. We'll see if anything happens, but Wololo seems to be having only carriers and 0 launchers, despite collecting a lot of mana. We'll see, maybe a lot of their launchers just died, but the end result is all of their units are dead. And it looks like your anchor is going to do a clean sweep on Wololo if they manage to collect the last island, and they do. So clean sweep by your anchor is strong performance, and they move on. They win 5-0 actually. Now we have producing perfection, our runner-up last sprint versus Blue Dragon.
We've seen here early game is very important. It looks like producing perfection takes control of the middle, surrounding Blue Dragon's middle headquarters. Most of Blue Dragon's robots are actually in the top right or bottom, top or bottom right. See if they can pathfind to some more resources.
Yeah, Blue Dragon seems to be focused on defending, but meanwhile, producing perfection is actually expanding, trying to take control of the map. And it looks like they have managed to take control of the map. Producing perfection is showing the strategies that they used to get second place in the first Spirit One tournament as they quickly overrun Blue Dragon. We'll see if they manage to catch any islands. It looks like due to the large number of units, it's a bit of a struggle, but in the end, they do manage to capture 3 islands. On to tic-tac-toe, we see that producing perfection instantly moves up on the right and down on the left to attack, and this super quick attack quickly wipes out Blue Dragon. And it looks like Blue Dragon had nothing to say about it. Producing perfection seemed to know like instantly where the enemy headquarter was and instantly knew where to attack, possibly using its knowledge about symmetry. And a quick victory for producing perfection. On to game 3, we see that producing perfection seems to be kind of scattered with its attack, attacking the top and bottom separately. We'll see if that ends up hurting them, but meanwhile, it looks like Blue Dragon's defense is not that strong. Blue Dragon does seem to have some amplifiers, but all they can communicate is the loss of their comrades. It looks like spending some of those resources on the amplifiers might not have been worth it, as producing perfection with its only carrier, only launcher strategy ends up winning the combat. And it looks like another clean sweep from producing perfection. We'll see if they manage to close out the game of any islands, but it's looking unlikely for Blue Dragon to be able to do anything. And an interesting thing to note is that producing perfection seems to be producing way more launches than carriers. The ratio seems to be about like 3-1, if I could do mental math in my head. Don't trust me. But that's in stark contrast to some other teams. I saw a fast team had like 250 carriers to like 50 launchers. So there were different approaches to the game, focusing on econ or combat. But producing perfection wins this one 3-0. Now we have what is burnout versus the Waterloo Geese. On to Maze.
A lot of what is burnouts robot, or I'll call them burnout. A lot of burnouts robots just staying still right now. Oh, collecting resources, that makes sense. Important part of the game. So,
but meanwhile, what is burnout is advancing towards the middle of the map. Waterloo Geese has a strong economy going in the top right and bottom right though.
It's like burnout going for early island captures. That's a interesting strategy. I really like it. They have control of the middle, and I think Waterloo Geese needs to move a lot of their robots away from their headquarters. We see what is burnout has now captured 4 islands. Let's see if they can get the 5th. Oh wow.
Wow. It looks like Waterloo Geese has a strong economy, but they seem to neglect the islands a bit. And giving up the map control seemed to cost them the game. Waterloo Geese seems to have a stronger showing at the beginning of this game, with a bit stronger combat. And we see what is burnout's carries in the bottom right doing absolutely nothing. It looks like some of the pathfinding seems to be failing a bit. Maybe if they use bug nav, they would navigate around the obstacle. But it looks like they're not implementing that. And in the meantime, Waterloo Geese seems to have a lot of units that they're gathering up. We'll see if any of them end up going for islands. But overall, like pretty low offense from both teams. They seem content to like farm up and get the econ. What is burnout doing some offensive on the bottom? We'll see if it amounts to anything. But Waterloo Geese has more units overall that they can use to defend. And Waterloo Geese has invaded the bottom right corner of the map. We'll see if they manage to also close out the bottom left of the map. And Waterloo Geese takes islands. Tie up the game. And now we have what is burnout versus Waterloo Geese on Spiral. Early aggression from what is burnout takes control of the middle. We'll see if the launches at the top manage to do anything, as they seem to be trying to pick off some of the carriers, but some launchers from Waterloo Geese end up taking control of that. But in the meantime, the
have a-
offensive on the bottom has taken control of the headquarters.
Flanking strategy from What is Burnout. Let's see if Waterloo Geese can come back from this. It looks like they've now got 2 islands. Let's see if they can get a third. And there's a skirmish on the top.
But quick island victory. Looks like both teams are relentless in capturing islands and securing control of the map. We'll see how the next game turns out. A smaller map and a quick offensive, but what is Burnout's carries? One of them is on the opposite side of the map. But they managed to get to the headquarters. Oh, they loop around a bit, having fun with the currents. But the launches seem to be actually being productive. One robot time seems to be slacking a bit, having fun with the currents. But in the meantime, one of his Burnout's launches actually accomplished their objective and surround the enemy headquarters. We'll see if any Waterloo Geese's units manage to escape, but it's looking unlikely. And it seems like What is Burnout is gonna close out the series if they can get one more carrier for an anchor. And I see the anchor is coming and they capture the third islands. The series is actually pretty close.
John Silver versus Yodi Gang.
We don't joke about Yodi game. Okay. An offensive towards the middle. Yodi gang seems to be focusing on econ of the carriers in the middle. But in the meantime, John Silver had a lot of launches attacking. And it's like the middle has been taken control of by John Silver. We'll see if the econ on the opposite sides of the map manage to do anything, but John Silver has over 100 carriers. And it's gonna be hard to out econ this team. And looks like just a greater number of robots is gonna spell the doom for Yoda Gang in this match. But Yoda Gang does have 1 island. Yoda Gang has 2 islands. It looks like in a last-ditch effort, they're gonna try and capture islands to sneak out a victory, but John Silver also captures islands. We'll see which team manages to reach 75% first, but it's looking a bit unlikely for Yoda Gang as they lose control of one of their islands at the bottom. And John Silver finds control for the last island at the top to close out the game. On to tic-tac-toe, we see Yoda Gang seems to have some stationary launches focusing on defense, but John Silver's offensive manages to wipe out those defending launchers. And looks like a quick victory for John Silver as we try and open an image in new tab. We'll see how quickly they manage to capture this islands, which should be pretty simple. It's going to be a bit difficult for Yoda Gang to put up any fight. Although we do notice that both of their headquarters have anchors built. Maybe they should spend those resources on robots, but at least they put an effort in to build anchors. On to the third map.
We've seen a lot of flanking strategy here. A little bit of lag. You see there's skirmishes on the right side, both teams defending their territory pretty well. Let's see if they can't get through these defenses, and it looks like John Silver has won a lot of the skirmishes.
Yeah.
Now taking control of the headquarters, making sure to stay out of that damage range and just surrounding the headquarters, not allowing Yoda Gang to spawn any resources.
Yeah.
And let's see if they can't take control of these islands. They have control of the map, and there's 1, 2, 3, and that's game.
Yoda Gang had an early island, but didn't use it to its full potential to defend. Didn't use it to heal their own units. And then ended up coming back to fight them.
We have Meteor versus Gone Fishing. Back to Maze, and we're jumping right in. It looks like Gone Fishing is taking control of the middle with these early skirmishes. Meteor mostly sitting back, collecting resources, hoping to get an economy advantage. But that's giving Gone Fishing a lot of robot advantage here. You see a lot of skirmishes still in the middle, fighting over that territory. Let's see if they can start switching to island capture.
Yeah, it seemed like for the first 150 rounds or so, they had roughly equal number of robots, but Gone Fishing ends up taking a lead in launchings and end up using their launcher advantage to start picking out Meteor's units. And it looks like despite being roughly equal in econ and other factors, Gone Fishing seems to have slightly better combat, and they end up using that to their advantage for a quick victory on these. We'll see how they do on a smaller map like Maze. Meteor seems to be trying to take control of the middle a bit, while Gone Fishing seems to be taking offensive on the top on the middle left. Actually, that's not offensive. Those are just curious, exploring for resources and eventually retreating. But they retreated right into the hands of a singular red launcher from Meteor. And Meteor ends up actually taking control of the bottom of the top right of the map. In the meantime, we'll see if Gone Fishing manages to do anything about it. But it looks like Meteor is going to tie this game up if nothing drastic happens. We can watch as they slowly build up Econ and hopefully capture some islands quickly. But we might need to sit. Okay, it looks like they are capturing islands, thankfully. And we don't need to sit through 2,000 rounds of that. Thank you, Meteor. Meteor with a quick offensive towards the middle, splitting up into two squads, one attacking the top, one attacking the bottom. They seem to be mostly taking control of in the bottom, but looks like Meteor actually did succeed mostly in the top, and they ended up using that advantage to take control of the bottom too. We'll see if Gone Fishing manages to do anything, but I don't see any way out for them with exactly 0 robots built. And we see another interesting strategy that Meteor seems to have a lot more launchers than carriers. It looks like another close 2-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio. And to take the lead, we'll see if they manage to close the series out on divergence. As there's a bit of like, which is kind of sad. But we have some offensive from Meteor's launchers in the middle. But it looks like they've been mostly repelled, but in a quick series of turns, it looks like Meteor manages to wipe out a lot of the robots from Gone Fishing at the bottom of the map. And because of that, it looks like they're going to take control of this game too. If they can build, okay, it looks like they were building makers. And interestingly, they captured the farthest away islands, skipping over one. Not sure why that happened, but Meteor ends up taking the series, 3-2.
Xenoblade versus Airho.
Sick. Okay, or we can just call it a string search.
String search, yeah, that's good.
Okay, anyways, onto the actual game. String search seems to be on a back foot from the beginning as Xenoblade seems to be taking it really aggressive. Xenoblade was another impressive participant who did very well in the last sprint tournament. We'll see if they manage to come back and actually take the crown this time. And it's like they're back with a vengeance with early aggression at the top right of the map. We'll see if String Search manages to defend the bottom right, but it looks like they are unable to. Just the sheer number of units on Xenoblade's side makes it difficult to do anything. And another interesting thing to note is, whoa, okay. Looks like Xenoblade manages to use their map control to create boosters and destabilizers. Looks like they created an elixir well somewhere on the map, which I can't see, but presumably a robot was on top of it. Interestingly enough, we see that Xenoblade seems to have about a 1-to-1 ratio of carriers and launchers. We'll see whether this focus on early economy or early launchers ends up winning the tournament.
Current Stick actually has more carriers than launchers, which is interesting. Like 1-to-4 ratio here. Looks like Xenoblade's launcher advantage that allowed them to pretty much dominate combat and take over the map. See if they can capture some islands here. And yeah, there we go.
Quick victory. Onto Spiral, another kind of small map. And we see some early aggression from Xenoblade, but it's pretty well defended. We'll see if String Search manages to keep defending, but it looks like Xenoblade is slowly chipping away at the bottom. It's pretty much succeeding. And we see a lot of the units at the top of the map are carriers. We do have some remaining launchers from String Search, but they're playing around at the top of the map. Celebrating about their team dies. I'm not sure. But in the meantime, Xenoblade is actually focusing on adventure and oh my god, objective. And the launchers end up getting found. And once again, we see some boosters and some destabilizings. We'll see if this use of elixir ends up paying out for them in longer games. 5-0 sweep. Okay, I'm not saying this name. The Grinders. I've learned my lesson from last sprint. The Grinders versus 21G 111. Well, it looks like an MIT class number. I wonder if that actually is an MIT class number. Do you know?
I have no idea.
Yeah, we're freshmen. We don't.
This looks like 21G takes control of the middle with early launchers. 21G actually has a lot of carriers here. That's interesting. I feel like most successful strategy have had a lot more launchers than carriers, taking advantage of kind of an overpowered launcher here.
Whether or not it's overpowered is up to discussion. But rest assured, the balance team will be discussing this. In the meantime, 21G seems to have a very strong economy, but the grinders are building up a strong defense on the top left of the map. We'll see if they manage to do anything. It looks like the grinders is starting to capture islands. If 21G doesn't focus on any islands, the grinders might actually win on tiebreakers, even if they lose due to robots. We'll see if 21G manages to place any anchors down and tie it up for the tiebreaker, but for now, the grinders are actually going to win this game if nothing happens. And looks like 21G did listen to our advice and they did actually place some islands down. Thankfully, we did not see what happened a lot during sprint one, which was teams losing due to not placing anchors. And now some quick early aggression towards 21G, and they actually win the fight. And they're actually doing a pretty strong offense, but the grinders end up pulling it back with some offense from the bottom right of the map. We'll see what the teams end up doing, but it looks like a lot of the top left headquarters seems to be neutralized. Well, 21G's headquarters seem to be mostly still going strong. Something weird's going on in the bottom left, but we're just not going to look at what's happening there. Okay, I lied. I'm looking at what's happening here. There's a lot of just moving back and forth. I'm not sure why. But in the meantime, while I was distracted looking at whatever that is, the grinders are like defending the bottom right with the last resorts. But 21G just has a lot more robots. If they manage to place any islands down, they'll be able to secure a victory. But the grinders does have one island. If they manage to use it to do defense, they might actually pull out a victory. But a lot of robots from 21G might actually just pull this game out just from sheer manpower. The grinders lose control of the bottom right islands, and quickly 21G manages to capture 3 islands. We'll see if 21G manages to do a clean sweep from the blue side due to some early aggression. But the grinders pull it back, and it looks like they're contesting from the middle, and the grinders seem to be slightly winning. We'll see if they manage to keep it up. And it's a very even fight in the middle. And we'll see what's going to matter is that the grinder seems to have optimized their carrier micro, moving back in and out of the vault to collect the most resources they possibly can. We'll see if 21G's slightly weaker economy ends up coming to bite them. And it looks like the grinders have stronger economy, leading to more robots, leading to stronger combat. It just ends in winning the game, probably. So it seems like a tough fight. It was pretty even for the beginning, but the grinders just pulling out more resources per minute.
And early game here is really important. You see 21G pushing with an early offensive, see if they can take control of the headquarters. And now they're kind of retreating, just circling in the middle, taking control.
Yeah, interestingly, the grinders seem to have like some launchers just waited in the cloud at the top.
Yeah.
Waiting to surprise any carriers that came by and try to take resources from that well, but the launchers gave up on their position, and now the grinders are actually starting to advance. But a lot of carriers from 21G. We'll see if the econ at the top of the map ends up making a difference for them. While the grinders seems to be taking more of an approach to defending their wall at the bottom of the map now, now that the early offense failed. We'll see what happens as some launchers at the bottom of the map take over an adamantium rope or quickly removed of. It looks like a very close game. We'll see which team. Oh, but it looks like one launcher needs to take out a lot of carriers at the top of the map, and it looks like a resource advantage and just an everything advantage at the end of the game for the grinders. It looks like we're going to our first game 5 of the rounds, and we're on to Cube, a new map. So it looks like they actually need to go like into the cube for some resources and some islands. And it looks like 21G and the grinders seem to have mostly switched sides at the top of the map. I'm not sure how that happened, but it looks like they're both targeting the enemy headquarters. But the 21G manages to defend the top headquarter. But the Grinders meanwhile take control of the bottom headquarter. Looks like the Grinders is pushing up with like a united front. And it looks like a lot of 21G's units have just evacuated to thin air. I would say cube joke here, but I don't have any. If you have any cube jokes, throw them out. I don't think anyone does. But if you do, please let me know. And we see the Gunners actually do use amplifiers. Not a lot of teams actually use amplifiers. Maybe difficult to use due to their communication powers and their lack of combat powers, but they end up taking the series. 3-2, close series.
Brute first Forcer versus forcefully drafted kids.
I'm not entirely sure if we're allowed to say things like that. on stream.
Yeah, I'll rename it. I'll rename them kids.
I don't want to say that either. I'm calling them drafted. So drafted. It looks like Brute Forcer seems to be taking some early victories in the middle of the map. We'll see if drafted manages to defend at all, but it looks like a united offense at the top of the map. A lot of launches is close together that can like instantly wipe out any robots that come their way. And we see like strong micro from the carriers, like a lot of carriers on the bottom side of the map collecting resources. It looks like some advancing on islands and a quick victory from Brute Forcer.
On to tic-tac-toe. See, again, a return to the randomly attack strategy. It looks like Brute Forcer taking control early on with a lot more launchers.
Yeah,
Kind of just camping outside the headquarter radius, making sure that drafted can't produce any more robots, or when they do, they're instantly taken care of. Let's see if Brute Forcer can't take control of some islands here.
Yeah, it seemed like Brute Forcer seemed to instantly know where the enemy island headquarters were. Because they advanced directly, like vertically, instead of trying to go towards the middle. And it seems that because of that, they managed to take an early offensive lead and close out the game quickly. 2 quick games from Brute Forcer. We'll see if they manage to make a third quick game as they aim to close out the series on Spiral.
And Brute Forcer with a quick offensive up the middle and moving towards that upper right headquarters. Let's see if they can't take out all these carriers that are helping drafted build a strong economy. You see Brute Forcer is still controlling the middle. Most teams have gone for a flanking strategy, but Brute Forcer here just overpowering offense, taking control of the headquarters and not allowing drafted to produce any robots.
Yeah, and interestingly, we do see the Brute Forcer also using amplifiers. And it looks like they had their amplifiers on the front lines right next to the launchers. The amplifiers might have actually played a role in that combat, helping communicate enemy locations. And those amplifiers might have actually been the difference in that combat, helping Brute Forcer close out the game. 5-0. Nice. Now you have Don't At Me versus Baby Ducks.
And we've seen here, because of the headquarters being so close together in the middle, that early game is pretty important. Don't At Me taking an early control here, making an offensive towards that upper right corner. See if Baby Ducks can come back from this. Baby Ducks just collecting resources, even though Don't At Me right now has a resource advantage. Don't At Me swarming in the bottom left.
Yeah. So interestingly, like the economies of the 2 headquarters in the middle being close to each other, meaning combat is impermanent, means that the headquarters that are on the corners of the map, they don't go into combat at the start of the game, and it's important to like focus on econ for them. And it seems like Baby Ducks seems to have a bit of lackluster econ on the bottom right of the map. And Don't At Me just ends up taking control of the middle of the map, and it seems taking control of the entire map if they manage to push their lead. And a very quick victory from them, in fact, if they manage to close out the game. Managing to take control of the middle in probably like 300 turns, which is actually pretty quick for 2000 rounds max time limit. Don't At Me once again seems to have strong economy on the top of the right of the map, actually. Baby Duck seems to have more control of the middle, but we'll see if that control of the middle ends up amounting to anything. It looks like they're kind of retreating a bit. But there are a lot more resources in the middle. There's about like twice as many wells in the middle. So we'll see if like taking control of the middle ends up leading to a resource advantage. If you pay attention to the graph, it seems that Don't At Me actually has a lot higher mana income per turn, but almost negligible adamantium resource per turn. So it seems that Don't At Me is focusing entirely on gathering mana and entirely on building launchers. And because of this, they end up winning the combat at the bottom left of the map. We'll see if they manage to use their launchers and invade the top right of the map. Looks like even now, Don't At Me's adamantium resource per turn is still a lot lower than its mana resource per turn. So it looks like Don't At Me's another team focusing solely on mana and mostly on gathering launchers. And we see while Baby Ducks had a more even approach to their resources, they end up losing in early combat and losing control of the map. As a quick victory, hopefully, if they manage to find the third island, and they do, a 900 rounds. We'll see how they do on Spiral. We'll see if Don't At Me manages to close out the series quickly. We see some interesting micro while the launchers are going into formation, but kind of getting stuck along their carriers in the top well. We'll see if the launchers end up actually invading. I'm not sure if that's intentional, if that's meant to defend their carriers, or if they're just getting stuck. But it looks like a lot of Don't At Me's launches just are getting stuck in the top left of the map. But meanwhile, the launches in the bottom of the map are actually invading from Don't At Me and are actually taking control of the bottom right headquarters. We see a lot of attacking of empty clouds. They should really check if the cloud's empty, they should really move away from it. But meanwhile, they're doing a lot of checking of empty clouds that they know are empty. And we'll see if Baby Ducks manages to do anything, but it looks pretty unlikely. And we're just gonna speed this game up as Don't At Me does a clean 3-0. Pretty quick rounds from all games. It was actually a 5-0. And you have No BFS plays versus the affectionately named Old. On to Maze. We'll see which team does an early victory. It looks like both teams are like taking what I said last game. The headquarters of the corners of the map seem to be focusing more on econ and less on fighting. And it looks like it's Old this has a lot more carriers and launchers. But actually No BFS please has more robots in general. It looks like stronger like generation of robots and resources from both sides of the map. We'll see if Old manages to defend its headquarter at all, but the bottom right from the headquarter has already been lost, the middle has been long lost. And it's just like a last valiant defense from the top right, but it's been overrun. One lonely launcher in the middle of the map trying to do its best, but it does nothing in the grand scheme of things. And No BFS plays quickly capture some islands.
On to tic-tac-toe. Let's see how the resource collection here goes. It looks like Older taking control of the middle early on, but No BFS taking advantage of all the Older's robots in the middle and launching an attack towards their headquarters. Currently not allowing Older to produce more robots, just camping around the headquarters, taking out anything that comes out. So that's going to give BFS a resource collection. Let's see if they can't take advantage of this and capture some islands. No BFS just swarming. No anchors yet, but soon they'll come, I'm sure. Here, just making sure that Older is not able to produce any robots. And they're just like swarming over those. Maybe the robots are blocking the anchors from being able to get to just from the sheer amount of robots. There we go, three islands.
Yeah. They quickly got control, but it took a while for them to close out the game with those islands.
And we have an early skirmish in Spiral in the middle. No
Looks like-
BFS.
Yeah, No BFS actually had a dominant victory of that early fight, managing to keep 3 of their launchers alive. And because of that, they're able to just like snowball a lead and take over the entire map. It looks like that one important fight at the very beginning of the game just completely went No BFS's way. And because of that, they're gonna end up winning this game and winning the series in a clean 3-0. And it was a 5-0. So the last 2 games actually went the same. Okay, well, we do a quick switch of casters. I know you guys all miss Gandhi.
Hello. And
Okay.
back to our favorite team from last game,
Yes.
Depression.
Alright. Okay. But we have Waffle.
Yeah, maybe Waffle will defeat Depression. Let's find out today on Maze.
In my experience, Waffle beats Depression.
All right. Let's see. So we have Depression on the red side here, Waffle on the blue side. It seems like they're getting to a bit of a fight, and Waffle with carriers at their center headquarter not able to fend off those launchers from Depression. And now Depression running over the middle of the map here, now going to flood towards the top right and now take over this adamantium well. But a counterattack from Waffle on the left side is scaring away and corralling these carriers away from Depression. But those carriers are fighting back with launchers and taking out a small squad, able to defeat Depression's forces. Now, Waffle holding on to their last hope in the bottom right corner of the map with their only dominion over this map. They do have an island captured. Maybe this will become important in tiebreaker. We'll
But they're not
find
using
out.
it to defend.
Yeah, but not sitting on the island and not able to hold this defense. It looks like they want to try to use their carriers to keep mining. Those carriers are using a current actually to get to those wells, so a bit faster from Waffle. But now Depression, just with its sheer number of forces, is looking to just take over the map here.
Yeah, Waffle does some remaining launches in the left of the map, but they're already surrounded if they get found out by Depression.
And Depression now eating Waffle alive, not able to do much about it. Looks like Waffle is just going to go down here. Depression now capturing islands, and that will be the first game.
Off to tic-tac-toe.
And tic-tac-toe, a bit of a smaller map. We've seen a lot of fights here. Now the launchers are going to find out about those wells in the bottom left headquarter, guessing the location from map symmetry. And now sort of wiping out anything. A few launchers stuck down in those currents, but they find their way out. Depression still has control of the right side of the map, though, now taking over that bottom right
It
headquarter.
seems they've already swapped sides a bit.
Yeah, it looks like they've done a bit of a side swap here. Waffle has the minion of that bottom right headquarter. Depression likewise with the bottom left headquarter. Now Waffle is going to launch an attack, and Depression.
But Waffle's launching an attack with carriers that don't end up actually doing anything. It looks like Depression's actually able to reclaim control of the bottom right headquarter.
But still on the top left, Waffle once again swapping sides with Depression. They've done another side swap here, another 180 between these two teams, and we'll see what happens. Waffle now taking back that
Waffle has
headquarter.
3 headquarters in control actually, and they managed to take control of 3 islands.
Yep. And Waffle going to win with the island tiebreaker, bring it to 1-1. Now on Spiral, let's see who takes control. Waffle winning the smaller map last time with a bit of a side swap, but Depression with early scouting immediately finds out where the enemy headquarters is, guesses the symmetry. Waffle camping a wall with some launchers, and now looking to attack the top left launcher.
Yeah.
Depression's launcher is quite confused, but finally get there. Looks like we're quite even on resources, though. Waffle on the bottom right has quite a formidable force, but Depression is no force to be reckoned with either. On the bottom left, hiding in a couple clouds, going to
Looks like
take an
Waffle
even
actually has a
trade.
very strong defense going on.
Yeah, it
Depression's
looks
trying to
like
attack, but not that successful yet.
yeah, they're fighting over the wall, and Waffle dodging and weaving back and forth. Depression not able to approach, but now finally finding their way around, and Depression starting to swarm this map. Waffle setting down an anchor in the top right. But it looks
they
like
use it to defend that one headquarter, but Depression just has a lot of launches just slowly streaming in, converging towards his headquarter.
yeah, and Waffle not able to hold that bottom right headquarter, going to cascade over the map now. And wow, that is an explosion of robots that just occurred. Depression looking to just bring this to a 2-1 and finally captures 3 islands. And now on to Divergence. Looks like an early fight in the middle. Depression gets the upper hand for a second, but Waffle's carriers, I believe, actually attacking there and whittling those down a bit. Going to make a vital difference, but Depression in the meanwhile is going to take advantage of that economy boost they get as a result of Waffle tossing some resources at the enemy. And now going to just start swarming this map, looking to close it out 3-1 unless a miracle occurs. But now they're just surrounding the headquarters. You see launchers slowly burning down, maybe stepping a little close to the sun, too close to the sun there.
It seems that Waffle focus on the top wells to collect the resources, but those wells are surrounded by clouds, increasing the cooldown, making it slower to get resources.
Yep, and Depression will be advancing to the next round. Congratulations. Now moving on to 4 Musketeers versus Mycroft, both very strong teams, as we've seen. We'll see who gets the upper hand on this first map. We've seen a lot of early skirmishes in the middle matter quite a bit on this map, and we're seeing a bit of a side trade here. Mycroft heading downwards, and now Four Musketeers heading upwards towards the on the top side of the map here, sending in a single launcher, but quickly repelled. But it looks like they have control of the center. Mycroft giving up this center headquarter, but massing quite some formidable forces in the bottom right and the top right. We'll see if they're able to use these forces to any good here.
Yeah, Minecraft does a large blob of robots, but they're basically all carriers.
Yeah, Mycroft losing a big lead with their elixir, and a lot of those wells near the headquarters are adamantium, choosing the wrong well to draw from, and that's going to be a vital difference for Musketeers taking the first game in this set. Now into tic-tac-toe. Once again, a small map. This early skirmish meaning so much, and Four Musketeers getting the upper hand. Now going to see where those launchers came from and stream into that bottom left headquarter. And now taking control of this map. Top right, Mycroft still does have a force of carriers gathering some resources. It is a mono well, so that will give Mycroft some things to work with in the defense. But now the pressure, Four Musketeers is not going to let this go easily, and now just sending in launchers one by one, making sure that nothing can get out of their patrol. And it looks like they're looking to take the islands. One island taken, two island taken, and they have control of that bottom left quadrant. If they get a carrier down there, that will be the end. But they actually take the top right, and that's the win for Four Musketeers.
Four Musketeers just kept advancing on the top right of the map, not allowing Minecraft to get any map control or claim any islands.
Yeah, now into Spiral. Once again, we see an early fight, and Four Musketeers showing that they do have stronger launcher micro seems to get the better hand, get the upper hand in this fight. Once again, a launcher micro making a big difference here. And it looks like now Mycroft once again back to defending one of their headquarters, giving up another. Four Musketeers on the other hand, looking to build up an economy and maybe close out this set cleanly if they can. But Mycroft sending a few carriers out to scout immediately get taken out, and now Four Musketeers realizing that headquarters defenseless with no resources, starting to stream in and starting to work on the islands. And now it looks like they're going to close out the set 3-0.
A pretty dominant performance from Four Musketeers, showing off the power of map control.
Yep, and taking a set 5-0 and advancing to the next round. Now our last round of the first, our last game of the first round, Middens versus Oilers Broilers.
We're close to getting new maps.
And we'll see some fresh maps in these upcoming rounds. But first, let's see Middens and Oilers Broilers getting into a confrontation in the middle. And now the blue side, Oilers, taking the upper hand once more. Middens, of course, lots of carriers in the back, looking to build a stronger economy. Oilers Broilers, you know, lots of those wells don't seem to have carriers operating them, but maybe this won't matter.
Roughly equal number of launchers.
Yeah, and a roughly equal number of launchers. Even though Oiler Broilers gets an upper hand in the fight, they don't actually have a way to get resources since they have so few carriers working with them. Look like they are really just using these carriers as meat shields. And now Middens with a stronger economy, now in full swing, coming back with their own force, going to retake the middle, and a cascade of robots. And now they realize they can just capture these islands one by one. Oilers Broilers are getting an upper hand, but not able to close out the game. And now our client is lagging. That is a lot of robots from Middens, and that's a win. And on to tic-tac-toe. Maybe Oilers Broilers with their early upper hand with the fight will get the upper hand in this map. And it seems like this might be the case, but a lot of their launchers losing while their robots are mainly carriers remaining. Now Middens looking to take control with these remaining launchers they have. But Oilers Broilers now coming back with a new force of launchers, cleaning out this side of the map, and now guarding that bottom right headquarter, patrolling it and making sure no launchers get out. Still one rogue red launcher on the left side, and it's going to actually do some work before it gets taken out. Now Oilers Broilers with their early game launcher strategy seems to be working a lot better with this smaller and more constrained map than Middens. And Middens losing control of all their headquarters now, maybe looking to stock up a bit before launching a counterattack. In the meanwhile, maybe Oilers Broilers will just look to capture the islands or just look to swarm one of those headquarters. A failed attempt, those launchers just multiplied. And that's going to be a win from Oilers Broilers.
Yeah, so just a lot of small victories in the early fights end up compounding and leading to a victory.
Yeah, and maybe Middens will be able to use what we saw in that first game on this map where wells are a bit closer to the headquarters. An early flank from Oilers Broilers launchers from around that corner leaves Middens top left headquarter defenseless.
Yeah.
And now those carriers can't do much, but they still do have control of that bottom left headquarter. Oilers Broilers this time, though, does look to actually have a bit of a stronger economy, actually gathering lots of these resources from wells and just circling like sharks around that upper left headquarter. Mittens may be looking to stock up a little. They are down on resources here, and now they're down on robots. This is looking hopeless for Mittens, unfortunately. And now it looks like Oilers Broilers is looking to take the lead in this set 1-2 and looking to advance to map 4. Now on divergence, we once again see an early skirmish. Let's see who gets the upper hand. It seems like it's a back and forth kiting fight, but Oilers Broilers with one launcher left and now wrecking havoc on Mittens' carriers for a moment. And now they look to have control of that upper set of wells. Mittens hasn't yet discovered those wells hidden behind the clouds, and Oilers Broilers unable to actually defend from these 3 or 4 launchers wrecking havoc on their carriers. Those carriers with no resources can't attack. And even though they are able to grab onto those upper wells and get the upper hand in an early fight, Mittens is now looking to just close out this set cleanly with a swarm of launchers and carriers covering the map. This is looking to be a swift victory for Mittens, bringing it to a game 5. Let's speed up this game here. It looks like Mittens has 2 islands captured. And now it looks like they're not even going to be able to get to that 3rd island. If a carrier ever finds its way to a 3rd island, I think that would be a miracle, but it looks like they'll win on the tiebreak for just having 2 islands. Now on Cube, let's see who can take out the game 5 in advance. It looks like once again, Oilers Broilers getting an early win, but chasing Mittens too far towards the headquarters and losing a kite. But now Mittens seems to be abandoning that top left headquarter in favor of the bottom left one. Oilers Broilers has a little patrol of launchers waiting for any launchers that come back to try to retake it.
Minix is actually down to 1 launching, 0 launchings.
But now it looks like Oilers Broilers flooding the bottom side of the map while Mittens forces head to the top, and Mittens forces have nowhere to run. Oilers Broilers looking to close out this set 3-2. Not an easy victory for them by any means, but certainly a convincing one in this game 5. Now, hopefully going to put down islands and going to close out the set. Congratulations to advancing to the next round. Now we'll be starting on round 5. These will be the top 16 teams. Lots of these teams from past years with recognizable names, past finalists, past sprint winners, past final winners, and we'll see who's able to take the upper hand. These teams putting in a lot of effort over the past 2 weeks. We'll see who starts. First, we have Super Cow Powers, one of the past sprint winners, going to be against Kryptonite. Another very strong contender from previous years. We'll see who's able to take the upper hand in this set of 5. Starting on a very curious map. I might call it a suspicious map, even. It looks like Super Cow Power is running into the clouds and getting the upper hand. You know, Kryptonite not able to actually attack those launchers in the clouds, and Super Cow Power is weaving in attacks out and in out of these clouds when they can't even see what's going on around them. And now with this upper hand, you see those carriers scattering as a single launcher approaches them, just booking it and running away from that mono well, but they are fighting back. The camera is unfortunately covering it here, so I can't see it fully, but they did fight back, but failed. And now Super Cow Power is looking to advance their launchers across this map and take over, making the second Among Us figure red as well. It seems like Kryptonite has no hope here. Sorry, the second Among Us character red as well. And now they've taken 2 islands and now 3. This will be a first win for Super Cow Powers in their dominance. Oh no, and this map, Bow and Arrow Part 2, I like to call it. Starting with an early fight, but Kryptonite gets the upper hand, but Super Cow Powers dodging and spawning units behind that wall, going to end up winning out the fight. And now this map is probably going to be a swift victory for Super Cow Powers.
The headquarters are building down.
The headquarter damage is doing some work, but just not enough. And now Super Cow Power is going to go 2-0. Let's see if Kryptonite can strike back on Snowflake, a smaller map. And we'll see who can take.
To get stuck in.
Yeah, lots of walls and lots of terrain to fight around. Looks like Super Cow Power is advancing a little too far on the bottom side there, but not advancing too far on the top side. We might see a bit of a side trade here, but Kryptonite seems to be out of fuel with no launchers left. And now a new force of launchers from Super Cow Power scattering those carriers. It looks like Super Cow Powers is looking to close out this at 3-0. Dominant performances in Sprint 1, dominant performances during our scrimmages, and now a dominant performance in Sprint 2.
Can anyone beat Super Cow Powers?
Tune in next round to find out. So it just looks like this will be a swift victory. They are now setting down the anchors. 4 islands captured, 5 islands captured, and that will be the end.
They have some boosters.
There are some boosters.
Those
Super
are
cow power is
destabilizers.
actually destabilizers.
I know my units.
Super cow power is actually using the elixir units. We'll see if that comes into play later on in this set. Let's see if they upgraded well, really far away from their base. Interesting strategy. But
actually
Kryptonite does
lost the game.
take a game off of them. Gods do bleed, and super cow powers may lose a set. We'll see how this goes. Moving on to the next game, we have Dage versus Your Anchor is on another island. I will not be saying that full name during this set. So now Dage and Anchor is now getting into a fight in the bottom side. Both teams deciding to fight in the bottom, interestingly. And that launcher looking like is going to lose, but actually taking it back. But now in the second wave, it looks like Dage gets the upper hand, able to spawn more launchers and manage them a little better. Now streaming into the other character, but this looks to be quite the effective task, as those carriers not attacking or defending themselves properly can't come back to their headquarters, sort of trapped where they stand. Those launchers now just patrolling this area and looking to make this a swift game one. Dage with a convincing performance. We'll see if this continues. Your Anchor on another island. Once again, a strong contender in our last sprint one. We'll see how this, if they're able to do anything in these next few maps.
Yeah, last game we saw the fights went pretty even.
Yeah, now onto Square, another very swift map, and Dage just shows that they have stronger prowess in this early micro. We'll just speed this map up because it is meant to be a map that goes by quite quickly. Dage is now just going to look to win on a tiebreaker. They have very few robots, but just so many resources, probably because they can't find these wells. And now onto game three. Let's see if Your Anchor is on another island, can defend on Snowflake. It looks like an early wave of launchers in the bottom is wreaking havoc on them. Maybe those middle launchers will be able to fight back, and it looks like they're able to regain some control. And those launchers on Dage just waiting at the perimeter of the vision of Your Anchors on the other island. The approacher getting the lower hand in a fight, it seems. And now Dage, with a small force of launchers, taking over the bottom right side of the map and also just attacking that cloud for no reason. They can see into that cloud. They're just attacking it. But now it looks like they're just looking to close out this set 3-0. Your Anchor's on another island. Their Anchor's on no island, it seems. Our puns are great. I thought of these before. No, I didn't. And now Dage is looking to just swarm this map, and this is looking to be a swift 3-0. A set of very small maps. So it seems like we'll see who has the stronger micro and able to defeat the enemy team on these smaller maps.
And the lines are making a cool shape in the bottom right.
Yeah, Dage looks like and we see destabilizers again.
17.
Interesting. We'll see how these turn out as we proceed through the rounds. But for now, Dage spawning them after already winning, and that will be 3-0. Now onto Producing Perfection versus What is Burnout. Both pretty strong teams, both in their previous sets and the previous sprint. But Producing Perfection sending a scouting carrier, an interesting strategy compared to what we've seen. Will they be punished for this? They do know where the enemy is, but they are leaving some extra defenseless, a few less bodies to block for those launchers. And it looks like that mattered for about a second. What is Burnout retaking control of their side and now looking to approach? But that is a wall, and Producing Perfection dodging around that wall for defense. And now they have new sets of launchers, but those launchers leaving their headquarters defenseless, just running away and just giving up their headquarters. And this is looking to be a vital mistake. What is Burnout going to swarm in from the bottom side as Producing Perfection clears house and runs towards the top? And that will be an island victory from What is Burnout, taking the first map. Now onto Square, we'll see who has a better launcher micro here. I think we'll expect a very interesting first 100 rounds, and it seems like Producing Perfection has the stronger launcher micro, but a few carriers are still alive. If they can weave in and send those resources back, maybe there is hope. For now, it looks like there is none. A few launchers spawning and being zapped down instantly. Producing Perfection, those launchers are dodging around, trying to avoid the damage circle of the enemy headquarters, but it won't matter. It seems like this match will go to Producing Perfection, bringing it to a tie of 1-1. The stronger launcher micro is seeming to win this game.
It seems like teams learned their lesson from jail and actually placed their units in the right spot this time. Producing Perfection placing the carriers outside of the box, allowing them to actually gather resources and avoid an early bloodbath in the middle of the map.
Yeah, pretty clever spawning of spawning of robots, and we'll see if this affects their next match. It is tied right now, 1-1 in a very close set. Now onto Snowflake. We've seen some interesting games with side swaps. A lot of people liking to rush this bottom side, as we see from Producing Perfection, but also rushing the top. Maybe those split forces will be their demise, though. They do have control of the bottom side, but what is Burnout defending the top? Now those launchers moving towards the left, but leaving those headquarters undefended, and Producing Perfection coming down from the bottom is going to start whittling away as what is Burnout's forces, and now surrounding this headquarter, weaving in and out and making sure nothing can get out. It looks like this will be a 2-1, Producing Perfection taking the lead in the set. We'll see what will happen on the next map.
Yeah, after a very strong performance last sprint tournament, Producing Perfection does not want to get out early.
And now onto another very small map. We'll see how this affects the two teams who performs better on these small maps. What is Burnout getting an early lead in that fight? All three launchers surviving, but in a bad spot for the next wave of launchers coming from Producing Perfection's base. Those forces scattered, and now no launchers remaining. It looks like what is Burnout is stocking up on mana, but doesn't have a way to bring those back home. Now Producing Perfection stuck in the cloud, not able to get out, and giving what is Burnout a second to catch their breath, but now they're coming in, and it looks like Producing Perfection is closing this set out 3-1. What is Burnout? An early victory in those in the first map and also early on in this map, but Producing Perfection striking back and taking lead after they lose an early skirmish here. Going to capture the 3 islands and close out the set and advance to the next round. Congratulations to Producing Perfection. And now on to John Silver versus Meteor.
Now we have our least favorite map of all time.
I think this is a great map. I didn't make it though. It looks like Meteor sneaking in through the bottom. Maybe those will reach the carriers, but not actually. John Silver holding on to a couple of mana within their headquarter to spawn emergency defenses.
It looks like the launchers are venting into the other
no. Oh no. Anyways, it looks like there might be an imposter in that top right, in that top right corner. A red carrier hiding at that well for a moment before being spotted out and destroyed. And now it looks like, Meteor's temporary scramble when a launcher approached early on is costing its resources dearly. And now, just from a sheer resource advantage, John Silver managing their resources better and getting the upper hand in a couple early fights is going to dominate this map and take the 3 islands.
And John Silver completed the task capturing 3 islands.
Okay. Anyways, on to square. We now see both teams actually escaping the square in the center. An interesting dynamic compared to the other ones. A couple carriers sneaking around, but red does have 2 launchers, but going to the enemy instead of actually bringing resources back home is going to be a vital mistake. Meteor had the chance to come back and spawn a few launchers if those carriers made it back home, but now it looks like this game is doomed. Once again, squares a map that is extremely small between the distance of these headquarters, going to be a vital mistake from Meteor, losing an early skirmish and losing the game.
But unlike a lot of other teams, John Silver actually manages to find some of the islands and capture one.
Impressive. Now onto Snowflake. We'll see what happens. It looks like once again we get an early skirmish in the bottom side of the map here, trading for the top side, but they are fighting over the walls here. A fight breaking out in the middle, and a single launcher dealing so much damage to those carriers on the bottom side. But now it looks like John Silver is striking back at the top. But who has the better economy here? It looks like Blue has a lot of mana and a lot of robots approaching. It seems like more carriers, better farming of resources is going to be vital in this match. Meteor currently has a resource advantage and is looking to push that advantage into a win. Can they capture these islands, or can they push down those head carriers? It looks like John Silver, lots of carriers, but very few launchers actually to defend those headquarters. Most of their launchers stuck in the middle of the map, not going to be able to defend launchers if that bottom side attack finally comes to fruition. Those carriers zapping an enemy carrier who is hiding amongst them for a second. And now Meteor is looking to expand its wave of robots out slowly and take over. That carrier was dodging over walls. That is a clan visual bug, just to be clear. And now it looks like those carriers scattering as a single launcher approaches. And now Meteor slowly taking control of this map and taking control of the islands, has control of a few, and is going to take a game off John Silver, bringing it to 2-1. We'll see if they can bring it to a game 5 here, winning on Risk, a very small map. and we'll see how this works with the clouds. It looks like Meteor with an early wave of robots seems to get the upper hand until John Silver strikes back. And now a lot of those launchers that went out are being kited and destroyed by John Silver's own launchers who are better grouped. A single red carrier just hiding in that well before finally being destroyed. But all of that effort Meteor putting into destroying that launcher is not worth the effort, as John Silver is now dominating this map and looking to close it out 3-1. It looks like this will be a 3-1 victory for John Silver, showing prowess on these smaller maps and looking to take these islands. And a final score of 3-2, so a very close set.
Meteor did put up a fight, but ended up losing in the end.
And now Xenoblade Game of the Year, semifinalists from last time, and Grandiloquent Grinders, also a very strong team from Sprint 1. We'll see who gets the upper hand on our first amazing map. It looks like Xenoblade is the first to approach. Grinders seem to have a different strategy of sort of camping their launchers around their headquarters, letting the enemy approach and moving forwards very slowly. We'll see which one comes out on top. And now it looks like Grinders' strategy is paying off, getting the launcher advantage here. But now a couple launchers from below scattering them, and it looks like they're now losing ground. Those carriers are have a lot of those resources they're holding on to that they haven't deposited back into their headquarters, but they're able to hold a defense. So maybe once those carriers are now heading back, a new wave of launchers looking to appear and maybe strike back some ground. A big group of launchers now moving towards the left, and a lot of Xenoblade's robots are carriers and not able to defend successfully. But Xenoblade hiding launchers and carriers, hiding a couple launchers within those carriers, and carriers tossing resources themselves. But a new wave is coming. While they defend from Grandiloquent Grinders, those carriers can't harvest resources, and those resources tossed are hurting their economy. Grandiloquent Grinders with more mana, but once again, able to hold off another attack. We'll see now as Grandiloquent Grinders launches a third wave of offense, but once again, repelled by a few launchers from strategically placed positions. It looks like it's going to be a win from the island perspective, a very close match. And not clear who's going to win, but Grandiloquent Grinder sneaking an anchor onto that third island, going to take the first map. And now to Square.
Square can speak for itself.
It looks like, actually, this is a pretty close skirmish. There's a very back and forth here. A few carriers remaining, looking to get those back, but now Xenoblade Game of the Year getting the upper hand in that early fight with 1 or 2 launchers left is going to scare away those carriers. And now it's looking to be a victory for Xenoblade Game of the Year, tying it up 1-1 on this second map. We'll see how this affects the next few games, as now Xenoblade Game of the Year swarming robots around the headquarters and around the square.
We'll see how their exploration goes.
There now you see our bug nav in action as they finally find a few islands, and the first team to actually close out 3 islands on this map, even though it was at turn 1900.
It took a long time, but it looks like they eventually did explore all corners of the map and find them.
And now Xenoblade, and they're doing a bit of a side swap here. Those launchers just completely missed each other. Grandiloquent Grinder sending some from the bottom, and Xenoblade going through the middle, going to launch attacks on each other's headquarters and finally repel them from each other. But Grandiloquent Grinders looks like they have more launchers and are now demolishing that mana well up above and making sure nothing gets out. A few launchers doing a lot of work there, and a few launchers on the bottom right instead holding a defense. A strong balance between defense and offense from Grandiloquent Grinders going to lead to a strong victory on this set if they can convert it. Xenoblade still has access to just 1 final mana well, but finally a wave of launchers approaching and going to close out the game. Bringing it 1-2, we'll see how this happens on Risk. Once again, a small map. We'll see who gets the upper hand on this early skirmish. Xenoblade finding those middle wells might be vital to their victory, but until they can get those resources back, Grandiloquent Grinders getting some resources of their own, but those carriers with resources demolished from across the wall by Xenoblade, and now Xenoblade looking to spread their influence across the map. Grandiloquent Grinders not able to capture those center wells, and less exploration than Xenoblade. And now Xenoblade's early exploration looking to prove quite useful in this fight. Those upper left headquarters destroyed and those wells taken over. Xenoblade has a stronger economy, more robots, and are now looking to just balloon their influence across this map. Let's speed this up. It looks like they may or may not be able to get to those islands. 2 islands taken, now a third. That will be
captured both of them in the same turn, actually.
Oh yeah, so they actually have 4 islands. And actually amplifiers coming out from play from Xenoblade. Let's see how those turn out in game 5. Within Cornucopia, the first time we see this, and now we'll see in a larger map who's able to perform better. Xenoblade once again with exploration, reaching the middle faster with launchers. And now we see a very scattered fight from several fronts by these two teams. Those islands hidden underneath currents. And now Xenoblade seems to be getting the upper hand. Grandiloquent Grinder's forces are a little scattered here, not able to group together and perform an effective fight.
Xenoblade seems to be taking control of the middle with a steady stream of launches from.
Yeah, it seems like Xenoblade's strategy of sort of exploring the middle of the map and making sure they understand where everything is with a wave of carriers and launchers proving effective on last match. And now we see boosters coming into play. Xenoblade choosing to offer boosters. We'll see if that comes into play as they fight other teams, but congratulations for Xenoblade for winning this close set 3-2 and advancing to the next round. Now onto Brute Forcer versus Don't At Me. Onto once again Sus.
You see some early aggression on the bottom of the map from Brute Forcer.
Yeah,
Don't At Me seems to be.
But those launchers seem to be scattered. You know, two launchers approaching on the bottom from Brute Forcer, but one getting lost. But it looks like, yeah, grouping those 4 launchers and attacking the home base of Don't At Me while Don't At Me's launchers aren't at home are quite the effective strategy. And now another wave looking to go in. Brute Forcer with amplifiers looking to create some communication between these robots and make things a bit more streamlined. And now things are swarming into that right side of the map. The amplifier allowing them to determine where all of these robots are and telling them where to send robots to. The Brute Forcer looking to take the first game on this very suspicious map. And now onto the next one, Square. Arguably more suspicious than the previous.
Brute Forcer's carriers seem to be escaping, exploring the entire map. Bro, Don't At Me seem to focus on an early combat in the middle and seems to be taking control of the map.
Yeah, maybe exploration not helping so much on this map when the carrier, when the headquarters are so close together. Brute Forcer are going to be losing their robots as they sort of run out from those headquarters. And now Don't At Me looks to just take this game for themselves, tying it up 1-1 and looking to make a close set. Let's see how this game turns out now. I assume Don't At Me will probably win off a tiebreak here. It looks like this is what they're looking to do.
Yeah, it seems the early exploration did not pay off as they couldn't communicate anything important to the headquarters. And they weren't able to come back to headquarters as it was taken control by Don't At Me.
But now on Snowflake, a bit of a more distanced map. We've seen a lot of conflicts in the middle here, as well as a rush in the bottom. It looks like Don't At Me getting an early rush in the bottom side, but now Brute Forcer striking back on the top right. But Don't At Me has had the time to breathe and take some launchers as defenses, and they're able to ward off attack. It looks like they're launching a second attack in the bottom side. Now Don't At Me scattering those carriers, and those carriers losing so many valuable mana as they fall into the void. And now that mana could have been launchers to defend now, but now Don't At Me with more resources and so many launchers just grouped on that right side, zapping that one cloud. A little lost, I would presume, stuck on each other, but it looks like it won't matter. Don't At Me going to now spread across the map and take the lead in this set 2-1. We'll see how this progresses as we continue.
Yeah, we'll see once again how to continue taking advantage of clouds in our next map as we're going to advance to Risk with Don't At Me having a slight advantage.
And on Risk, we'll see what happens here. It looks like an early fight in the middle comes to Brute Forcer's advantage. A few launchers left and now going to start whittling at those carriers. Those carriers having a hard time get to the well. Some launchers are waiting.
Stuck on the bottom left.
But it looks like Brute Forcer now with an amplifier going to bring forward a few launchers over. The amplifier is sitting within headquarter radius, so it doesn't seem to be doing too much. Now Don't At Me knows where these center wells are and now farming those wells, looking to have a stronger economy, but fewer launchers right now. And those launchers being a vital force of attack for Brute Forcer, going to make a dent at the start. That amplifier lost, doesn't know where it's going, but looking like its vision radius maybe helping scout for Brute Forcer. And maybe this will make a difference. Brute Forcer now with a new set of forces, but losing control of those center walls again, maybe going to become vital as their economy now a lot weaker than Don't At Me's. But they do still have a strong defense here. Those carriers are farming, and even though that well at base is hard to access, they are getting some resources back. But now Don't At Me looking to start
flip the
taking
switch, they start
islands.
taking control of islands, and they start launching a first concentrated effort.
It looks like a few carriers with resources actually approaching. Don't know if that's strategic and meant to attack or if they just happen to be there. We'll see as Don't At Me approaches the next set with a score of 3-1 and a final score of 3-2. So once again, a very close set. Now on to No BFS Please versus Depression. We'll see who gets the upper hand here. On to, once again, a very interesting map. A carrier scouting out the entire forces of No BFS
Carriers
Please.
actually using No BFS's please as well.
Yeah, and No BFS Please temporarily scattering as a force of launchers coming in. Depression scouting out the enemy and knowing where all their robots are is able to get a very effective attack at the right locations. But now as those launchers are away from home and those carriers out scouting instead of gathering mana, going to start benefiting No BFS Please if they can look to take control of this map. Still only so many launchers running around, but now they're looking to just start taking over this map and making sure nothing can get out of Depression's headquarters. Depression losing control of those walls going to be vital in their in the victory of No BFS Please. And now No BFS Please looking to just swarm this map. Maybe they'll get to these islands, maybe they won't. It looks like they are going to take 3 islands and move on to the next map. We'll see who has the stronger micro
Yeah,
here
we'll see
once
if
more.
Depression's early aggression pays off for this time.
And it looks like No BFS Please taking the lead here in an early fight, and Depression now losing out on this fight. One launcher doing a little bit of work, but not enough. And now No BFS Please looking to gather mana from that. Well, this once again a very fast map. We'll see how this continues, but it looks like for now No BFS Please will be taking the set 2-0 and bringing it to the next map.
Yeah, interestingly, No BFS Please's units are a lot more spread out than we see a lot of other teams, and they actually covered a lot of the map.
Yeah, and now this is going to be around 2000 tiebreak victory. Now onto Snowflake. We'll see who takes the upper hand here. For now, it looks like Depression getting an early rush into that top side and scattering those carriers from that headquarter. On the other hand, 3 launchers approaching the bottom, but getting destroyed by a couple defending launchers and a couple defending carriers. And now that carrier was able to steal a little bit of mana from that bottom well, but they're losing control. No BFS Please losing control of that top left. And Depression
regain control on the top left.
But it looks like on the bottom right, nobody really knows whose well that is. It looks like both teams are taking from that well, and both teams have a formidable force on both sides of the map. No BFS Please with lots of carriers at this bottom side and lots of launchers sitting on the left, but Depression with its own group of launchers on the top and its own group of carriers now taking control of that bottom headquarter again. Very few launchers in the bottom right, so they're sort of running away from each other, even though they're both carriers. But now it looks like No BFS Please approaching with a force of launchers is going to swiftly and efficiently dismantle the force of Depression and close out the set 3-0 by taking islands. And that was a 5-0 sweep. So congratulations to No BFS Please.
It seemed they were on the back foot to start some of those games, but they managed to keep pulling it back.
And now Forced Musketeers versus Oilers Broilers. We'll see how these two teams perform against each other on maybe some smaller maps. We have, once again, a scouting carrier from Oilers Broilers. And once again, we see them trading sides. One launcher left for defense, but now immediately leaving their headquarter to be destroyed by the enemy launchers. 4 Musketeers getting a lucky, or perhaps not lucky, getting an early attack on the headquarter of Oilers Broilers while their launchers are out and not defending, going to be vital in this game where there's only one headquarter. And now 4 Musketeers is looking to take this map. Oilers Broilers, one launcher approaching the base of 4 Musketeers earlier, but just instantly destroyed by the carriers and not able to do very much, and now going to be a victory for 4 Musketeers. Now, once again, on this map, we see an early fight, and both teams coming out intact.
Fight away, but 4 Musketeers ends up taking the upper hand in that exchange.
Yeah, and looks like 4 Musketeers will now just take this map, looking like a convincing victory from them. And now we'll see what happens, leading the set 2-0, and perhaps looking to take a 3-0 sweep. We'll see if Oilers Broilers are able to stop this. And now onto Snowflake. Once again, a skirmish in the bottom side of the map here, but the actual defense from Four Musketeers for a moment, but now those carriers left defenseless, no resources to defend themselves and no launchers to defend them. And as Four Musketeers send some carriers to defend that bottom headquarter, a counteractive force from Oilers Boilers from the top side, attacking both sides here and attacking the headquarter with no defenses, a very effective and very efficient mechanism here from Oilers Boilers, going to look to close out this game and turn the set to a 2-1, not going down easily and taking those islands.
Yeah, it seemed Oilers was focused a lot more on launchers than it did on carriers.
And both teams finding the middle wells here, but it looks like Oilers Boilers base is undefended here. Lots of those launchers grouped up on the right side of the map instead of the left. On the other hand, Four Musketeers spreading their launchers across this map is proving to be a much better strategy. And now with the forces split, able to just win the numbers battle and capture those 3 islands very swiftly, and Four Musketeers taking a 3-1 set victory and advancing to the next round. Now starting with the next round.
We're once again going to switch off cast strings. Give us a minute. We're like 15 seconds. I apologize for all the Andy fanboys out there.
I'm sorry to be replacing the GOAT on the broadcast desk.
But now I already see one of my favorite maps out here because I made it in the map list. We'll see if we get to see it played
Here in the first match, we have Super Cow Powers versus Dage.
on sign. We'll see if Super Cow Powers manages to do what everyone expects them to do and retake the victory and win sprint 2.
Early center skirmish goes the way of Super Cow Powers, but now seems to be more of a trading over the walls there.
Yeah, there's only like a few squares that can actually pass through the sine wave. So we'll see if they manage to discover that one square. But for now, it looks like they're staying mostly on their side of the wall.
Looks like blue is mostly ignoring the left side. Even now, I guess they're getting beaten back by Super Cow Powers, but Super Cow Powers had largely unrestricted access to those 2 resource wells, and it looks like it might have just won that match.
Yeah, Dage's right head corner actually was not doing much that game, despite not being attacked. It seems some lackluster micro from that side of the map.
Here now on Piglets, we see an early rush to the center. Both teams, looks like Super Cow Powers is going to come out on top and actually move in and attack the left side on blue.
Yeah, successfully defended by Dage. We'll see if they manage to do a counterattack, but it looks like it's a weak counterattack, sending like one launcher at a time, and it's quickly taken out by Super Cow Powers. We'll see if Super Cow Powers is slightly more concentrated attack manages to do anything as they manage to take control over a well and kill a little carriers there. We'll see if Dage manages to do anything, but their access to resources has been cut off by Super Cow Powers' united defense, and we'll see that they actually managed to win. I'm not sure what islands they even captured, but somehow they won in 378 turns.
Looks like early access to those 2 central mono wells might be critical to winning on Piglets.
Oh, the enemy team self-destructed. That's what happened. Not sure why, but
Now on to Packbot. It looks like it's going to be a mad dash to the center for Dage to try and get in those wells. Interesting, not a lot of combat, although we do see some carriers throwing resources at each other.
yeah, the carriers actually in the middle seem to be cooperating slightly, both using the same wells.
Maybe creating some issues with pathing there is, although now the launchers come in for Super Cow Powers and really clean out that central portion. It's going to be tough for Dage to get back into this one.
Yeah, it seems that overall the units are slightly more scattered on this map, but Super Cow Powers finally gets a bit of a united front of launches at the top of the map that they're using to take control of the clouds at the top of the map. And it seems that Dage has now run out of units, and with Super Cow Powers is the united defense, and they managed to take control. And once again, Dage self-destructs. I'm not sure if this is intentional.
It looked like that cloud above the central 2 mono wells really created some issues with pathing, and it was sort of a stalemate until Super Cow Powers came in with those launchers and really cleaned it out. And they will take a 5-0 sweep in
A
this
very
round.
quick victory, actually.
Convincing.
Possibly because Dage kept resigning.
Now we have Producing Perfection versus John Silver, 2 very strong teams starting out on sign.
Yeah, we'll see if they manage to find their way across the wall. But so far, it looks like they actually are. From Producing Perfection, they've managed to split across the wall and managed to attack the top blue head corner.
Yeah, that battle in the center we talked about before really went Producing Perfection's way while the match was going fast. You almost couldn't see it, but it looks like they're going to take a clear advantage in this as they move ahead in adamantium and mana. And basically John Silver only has a small handful of units left.
Yeah, John Silver had one head corner that was largely undefended. It's largely like not attacked, but Producing Perfection manages to flank around the top side of it and managed to take control of that head corner.
And that's going to be a win on the first map for Producing Perfection. Now on to Piglets. Let's see who wins the race for the Mono Wells in the center.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty early aggression for both teams trying to take control of the middle, and Producing Perfection seems to be taking a bit of an upper hand. We'll see if they manage to send enough reinforcements into the middle to take control of the fight. And it looks like there's just a lot more launchers coming from Producing Perfection side.
Yeah, no carriers in the center yet, so there's really a missed opportunity for economy snowball for Producing Perfection. Now, though, their launchers that they sent across really wreaking havoc on the back line of carriers for John Silver, and it looks like Producing Perfection is going to take the upper hand and probably win this map.
Yeah, John Silver seemed to be defending pretty well, but Producing Perfection just kept a never-ending stream of launchers going, and it seemed that because of that, Producing Perfection is able to take this game.
Not many island captures in this series so far, but Producing Perfection will now take Piglets to take a 2-0 lead in this match.
And we'll see how they deal with the path running of Packbot, actually. And we see that already some launchers towards the bottom of the map getting stuck, but helped out by another launcher blocking the current. We'll see how they manage to do, but it seems that Producing Perfection and John Silver both seem to have pretty low robot counts to start off the game.
Yeah, they seem a bit even, although John Silver taking a lead in the economy. We'll see if that helps them get more units as they slowly learn their way around the map and gain better pathing, hopefully. But Blue seems to have largely uncontested control over those two Mono Wells in the center. That might be the tipping point here for them.
Yeah, even if both teams are even, if John Silver is the only team that can actually build launchers, they'll end up taking the game, and it seems that's what's happening. It seems that John Silver is slowly taking control of the actual game through combat. And even though it seems pretty even, John Silver's map control of the center of the map ending up being pivotal right now.
Yeah, and now the unit advantage becoming more pronounced for John Silver as they snowball and learn their way around the map. It looks like this is going to be a clean sweep on this map, but bring it back to a 2-1 score.
Yeah, we'll see if John Silver manages to find the islands. They're a bit difficult to find. They're hidden behind clouds and currents pointing out, but they end up finding it. And now we're on to Crossford. This is a pretty open map. We'll see how they manage to deal with the clouds in the middle of the map. And it seems that Producing Perfection seems to take an early offense at the top left, but that's directly into two enemy head corners, and the offense is quickly taken out.
Seems like there's a lot of production in the bottom right corner for Producing Perfection. Let's see if they can use that to their advantage.
Yeah, it seems like both teams seem to be largely staying on their side of the map. Producing Perfection seems to be taking more of an offensive approach at the top left, but it's pretty difficult to really break into this. But it looks like finally the stream of launchers approaching the top left of the map actually takes control of the head corners. And it seems that the clouds in the center of the map didn't matter, as John Silver didn't even reach the middle.
Yeah, it seemed just as John Silver got into those resource wells on the right side, it was as Producing Perfection basically stormed their way into the headquarters and dominated this map.
Yeah, it seems Producing Perfection just had stronger map control, even if the fight seems pretty even.
It looks like Producing Perfection took that one 3-1. Now on to Xenoblade Game of the Year versus Don't At Me. Two very strong teams looking to go head to head here on Sign.
We'll see if they manage to cross from all, and it seems that Xenoblade's Game of the Year's left headquarters seems to be actually sending units to help their middle headquarter. We'll see if that ends up helping them. By concentrating their efforts towards the middle of the map, it seems they're winning some of the early fights towards the middle. And they've actually managed to take control of the right side of the map too, flanking around the right and actually taking control of the middle headquarter too. It seems that Xenoblade seems to be concentrating their efforts towards the middle headquarter, and because of that, they're able to take control of the map in an unexpected way.
They actually split along the right side too on the underside of the sine wave and blocked off that rightmost headquarters for Don't At Me. Really no way into that map for Don't At Me. That was just a convincing strategy as Xenoblade goes up 1-0.
Yeah, once again, we're getting teasers of boosters, as it seems that both times they're getting used once the game has already been decided.
Here on Piglets, Xenoblade wins the dash for the center. Their launchers really getting in and wreaking havoc on Don't At Me, but Don't At Me still with a mana advantage. We'll see if they can take advantage of those central mono wells as they now look to launch a counterattack with their own launchers.
Yeah, see that Don't At Me's launchers actually seem to be hanging around in the nose of the red pig and actually stopping Xenoblade from collecting any resources. And it seems that despite both teams having a similar early approach with aggression, Don't Enemies just kept a steady stream of launches towards the enemy's nose, and because of that, Xenoblade is being stormed out of resources.
Yeah, you would have thought from the way Xenoblade took advantage of that central map control, it would have been a convincing victory for them. But for some reason, Don't At Me was able to just take a quick mono lead and come back with a horde of launchers of their own that just stormed the map for them.
We'll see how to do on Maze. They're tied up 1-1. Xenoblade Game of the Year is taking early control of the central map, which is pretty pivotal as it has 2 mana wells, which is important for controlling the launchers.
Yeah, it looked like Don't At Me killed a lot of their carriers that had gotten resources, though. So they didn't get many resources out of that initial push. Both teams pathing well through that central cloud, which seems to be critical. Now getting a little confused in the center as Xenoblade goes into the top right, trying to really lock out this headquarters. A good fight from Don't At Me, but spawning carriers when perhaps they should have spawned launchers as Xenoblade now takes control, taking control in the center and the bottom right as well. It looks like they're going to take this map and go 2-1 up.
Yeah, I see both teams finally ended up finding their way into the center, but Xenoblade just had more carriers, bringing mana back into the headquarters, which led to more launchers and a better combat victory. We'll see how they manage to deal on Crossword and how they manage to deal with the center clouds.
We'll see if they actually navigate into those center clouds or perhaps just focus on the combat. Here, navigating the clouds around the center platform. Looks like Don't At Me with a slight advantage in that combat. Not sure. Perhaps more of a strung out attack from Xenoblade Game of the Year. Now another counter attack. Looks like they've discovered at least the right side cloud monowells, but mostly hovering on their own respective sides of center. A convincing lead in resources for Xenoblade, however, not sure if that's because of the center or because of better pathing on their home wells. Now attacking on the left side. I wonder how Don't At Me will respond here.
Yeah, it seems both teams are taking control of the center cloud, using it to hide their robots. But Xenoblade is going straight around the left and avoiding the center concentrated robots. And it seems a lot of those robots are actually carriers from Don't At Me. They're just lost, trying to path towards something they can't do.
Interesting. Perhaps they discovered the left side resources in the clouds and not the right side, as Xenoblade really attacked up the left and wrecked Don't At Me's economy by blocking their access to the only mono well that they had seen on the map.
Yeah, and it seems that Xenoblade also took more advantage of the resource wells on the left side of the map, while Don't At Me didn't take advantage of the resources on the top right side of the map.
And again, just a very convincing performance from Xenoblade. We'll be excited to see what they do in the end here, as they also employ some destabilizers and boosters in the twilight rounds of this map. Looks like they're going to take a 3-1 victory and a 3-2, so a close final result there.
Now we're on to the last game of this round, which we will not translate from Afrikaans. Not sure what that was.
Here we have No BFS Please versus Four Musketeers, two very strong teams going into Sign. We'll see if they go for the center attack, as No BFS Please with a slight early advantage, but really tough to say. Economy looks equal so far, as does Robot Count. So maybe it'll come down to the mid game.
Yeah, but No BFS Please's headquarter on the left is doing absolutely nothing.
It looks like that one carrier with the adamantium well, perhaps focusing on the center, as they have a lot of carriers and now just an overwhelming robot lead. It looks like they just stormed over that center wall with perhaps better micro there and took advantage of this map's unique design.
Yeah, even though No BFS Please's left headquarter seemed to be doing like pretty little, it seemed that because of that, they concentrated their efforts towards the middle of the map and it ended up taking control of the map.
That's first map for No BFS Please. Now into Piglets. We'll see who wins the mad dash for the center and whether that helps or hinders them.
Yeah, it seems like No BFS Please's launches actually go between 2 waves of launches from Musketeers. And it seems that both teams are wreaking havoc on the enemy team's resources, but both of them seem to be getting wiped out. One of the launches from Musketeers ends up retreating and escaping back to base. We'll see if they end up doing anything with that one launcher.
Unit counts fairly even so far. Looks like each team really cleaned out the other team's headquarters, but now No BFS Please getting a convincing mana lead, perhaps from the center. And now seems like they're taking advantage even in blue side of the map, the blue Piglet.
Yeah, it seems pretty even, but No BFS Please's launchers actually seem to be more steady coming towards the enemy team's nose and actually throwing them off for resources too.
Yeah, it looks like that's going to be it. No BFS Please really holding out there, playing the long game and eventually beating back the final Four Musketeers attack. It looks like they're going to take this map as well and go up 2-0.
Yeah, we'll see if they manage to do a clean sweep, and it would be a dominant performance if they manage to take the series 3-0. We'll see what to do, but right now, no BFS please taking control of the top two clouds, but neither team seems to be really taking advantage of the center rows. It seems that no BFS please now has a few more carriers going in.
We'll see if those carriers can make it back safely. No, they'll get wiped out by the launchers of Four Musketeers. That was a big swing for Four Musketeers. If they hadn't gotten that, they might have been out of this map. Now their carriers and launchers are in the center. They look like they'll get back as the carriers of Four Musketeers crowd around that adamantium mine on the left side.
Yeah, but that adamantium row isn't going to do anything if all they can do is make more carriers. They need to reach the mana row and collect mana if they want to have any chance of winning combats.
Yeah, a big mana advantage for blue as well as in launchers. We'll see if that leads to a more offensive strategy here, as indeed they take over this left side, and it looks like they're going to start snowballing a lead.
Yeah, pretty close fight at the beginning, but Four Musketeers has ended up closely eking out control of the middle.
Yeah, they
and
avoid the
winning.
sweep, and now we go into crossword with a 2-1 score. We'll see who wins this pathing around the center island. We saw last time the blue side sort of crowded in the center, and it sort of cost them.
Yeah, we see Four Musketeers actually taking advantage of the currents on the top side of the map to reach the wells quicker. Well, no BFS please seems to be avoiding the currents, not taking advantage of them. We'll see if that extra movement advantage ends up mattering at all.
Yeah, and red is utilizing those left resource wells and also attacking on the left side. That could cost blue, although it seems pretty even so far, even with blue with maybe an advantage.
Yeah, and we see some of the carriers from no BFS please seem to actually taking advantage of the wells in the clouds, like in the middle of the map. But it seems that they mostly wiped out and didn't manage to reach their headquarters.
Seems that they drifted up the left side toward the launchers of Four Musketeers, and that cost them. Four Musketeers waiting it out, harvesting resources well, and it looks like they're going to take this map and bring us to a 2-2 score in the tiebreak map of Checkmate 2.
Wow, this is an interesting map.
This is really going to show who has good pathing in these clouds. Amplifiers would make a big difference here, but I don't think they're going to be employed early at least.
Yeah, this is actually quite difficult to tell what's going on just because there's so many elements on the map. It seems every tile has either like a cloud, a current, or a wall.
Yeah, looking at unit counts, it looked like Four Musketeers has a big early advantage with those 7 launchers, 8 launchers now, taking advantage in mana as well, convincing control of the bottom side of the map. Carriers sort of pathing around each other, but the red carrier escaping. Now no BFS please managing to make some launchers, but it's unsure if it'll make any difference. Coming back in the resources as well.
Yeah, we see that no BFS please seems to be running out of robots. While Four Musketeers seems to be taking control of the wells in the middle and using that to their advantage. And it looks like Four Musketeers might be looking to reverse sweep the series.
That had to be the first reverse sweep we've seen, or at least the first one I've seen. But yeah, it looks like Four Musketeers is going to take it with their possibly superior pathing in the clouds. And that's going to be a win on Checkmate 2, perhaps not by island if they can't see them in the clouds, but
Yeah, this map has a lot of islands, so we'll see if they manage to capture 6 in time, but they're already over halfway there. They just even want more, and they do. And despite like the decreased visibility, they managed to quickly find the enemy team, wipe them out, and collect the islands.
that was a lovely performance by Four Musketeers, and they win 3-2.
And now we're on to our semifinals. Semifinals. I know this. Our first match is Super Calcars versus Producing Perfection. This is a rematch of last week's Sprint 1 tournament finals. Now we're starting on USA. An interesting map. It has only one like path of walls and a lot of clouds. So we'll see how they manage to deal with the reduced visibility.
Launcher battle in the center, Producing Perfection, invading the territory of Super Cow Powers. Super Cow Powers, however, with a large force of launchers, really beating them back. Now it looks, even in terms of territory, almost identical in terms of resources. Both teams playing very well on their own sides. We'll see who can keep collecting better as both teams largely ignore the adamantium, actually totally ignore the adamantium. Now Producing Perfection attacking with nearly identical unit counts.
Yeah, but seems Producing Perfection is more on the offensive, while Super Cow Powers is focusing on defending its own territory. We'll see which approach ends up being more helpful, but Super Cow Powers actually has more concentrated launchers as a result of focusing on defending.
Yeah, Super Cow Power is now starting to take advantage of that adamantium. Producing Perfection invading their territory, though. This has been a closely fought battle near the center between the two sort of halves, two flags. Now Producing Perfection attacking the territory of Super Cow Powers, but running behind on unit count. Super Cow Powers losing in mana. Producing Perfection getting closer and closer to that HQ.
Yeah, producing perfection, just a never-ending stream of launchers going in to invade, and it looks like they're finally broken through Super Capcom's defenses. But it looks like they're wasting a lot of their attacks on the enemy clouds, not seeing the robots below them. But eventually, producing perfection, just a never-ending attack, ends up taking control and defeating Super Powers' defense.
Wow, an interesting match here on USA where the attacking strategy of producing perfection really paid off. And I wonder what we have in store on the next few maps. It looks like producing perfection will take this one.
Yeah, perhaps if Super Powers had some islands capturing, they might have been able to defend better. But for now, producing perfection actually taking control of a lot of islands and closing out this game. Now we're on to story. This is a pretty small map and like a very scrappy fight at the beginning. Producing perfection seems to be approaching towards the bottom of the map, while Super Powers approaches at the top of the map. It looks like they're kind of starting to swap sides. We'll see if they manage to completely wipe out the enemy team on that side, and it looks like they are.
Yeah, it looks like Super Cow Powers has the upper left corner. We'll see if a counterattack from Producing Perfection can counter that. No, it looks like Super Cow Powers will eliminate those units. That could be big here.
And now they're closing on the bottom left corner, trying to reclaim that head corner. And it looks like a lot of those launchers are dying. They're unable to retreat because they're going to the head corner's damage radius. And it looks like because of that, that team of launchers from Producing Perfection ends up getting wiped out in the bottom left.
And now due to the unit and resource advantage, Super Cow Powers is going to snowball and quickly take this map in convincing fashion. That was interesting. We saw a side swap on the left there with this rotational symmetry, but it looked like Super Cow Powers just came out on top in both combats and won the map, bringing us to 1-1.
And it was hanging up. Both teams are hungry.
Here we go. Something fishy about this map as we move into map 3.
Early aggression turns the middle, and the skirmish actually ends up going Super Cow Powers' way. They kept 2 launchers alive, and because of that, they're able to win the next fight. But Producing Perfection ends up defending thanks to the closer launchers.
Yeah, it looks like both teams tracking about even in unit counts as well as production. Those close trades in the center not giving a huge advantage to Super Cow Powers, but it looks like they've had a marginal advantage all the way, now bringing another even bigger attack in the center.
Yeah, it looks like both teams continue to send launches towards the center, but it looks like Super Cow Powers now has more launches that are advancing. We'll see if Producing Perfection manages to launch a stronger counterattack. But from now, it looks like Super Cow Powers just has stronger advances.
Yeah, it looks like Super Cow Powers has won at least marginally in every conflict in this map so far, and it looks like this is going to bring them closer and closer to the HQ, finally wiping out the last of Producing Perfection's units, taking the resource advantage, and now they're going to go for those islands and eventually claim this map to bring us to 2-1.
Now we're on
This map just brings a smile to your face as we move into sweet dreams. Early conflicts on the top between Super Cow Powers and Producing Perfection. It looks like Producing Perfection is going to win on the lower side with Super Cow Powers taking advantage on top. A singular red carrier hiding in the clouds is now going to be defeated.
We'll see if the Producing Perfection's launches at the right of the map end up doing anything. And it looks like they do manage to wreak some havoc, but they end up getting defeated overall by Super Cow Powers' defense.
You know, Super Cow Powers really won the initial conflicts on the top side of the map, which seemed to be more important. Producing Perfection winning on the bottom, but not doing anything with it. Looks like Super Cow Powers might just take this to a 3-1 and win this match.
Yeah, Super Cow Powers just making sure to defend the center and then sending all of those launchers to take control of the enemy headquarters.
Really rebounding well from that initial adversity. That shows a strong contender here as they look to take this semifinal match.
Yeah, this map does have a lot of islands. We'll see if they manage to find their way and capture all of them. But it might take a while.
Yeah, really, the quality of these games has been outstanding. That last map in particular with the marginal battles in the center slowly going Super Cow Powers' way, really showing that the investment in micro paying off round after round as they move in with those conflicts.
And more teases of the stabilizers being built on the ends. But Super Cow Powers ends up taking the series 4-1, advancing to the finals. Once again, we'll see if anyone can beat this team.
And now to our second and final semifinal match, Xenoblade Game of the Year versus Four Musketeers, 2 teams that have really battled their way through this tournament so far. USA had some surprises the first time. We'll see what happens now.
Yeah, seems both teams are advancing towards the middle, but Xenoblade seems to have slightly stronger offense.
Yeah, it looks like that initial conflict actually got traded out evenly after Xenoblade got an initial advantage. Even Four Musketeers now with a unit advantage, 8, 9, 8 launchers and also a resource advantage.
Yeah, but Xenoblade has barely any carriers and ended up going down to one carrier.
Yeah, it looks
and
like one
launcher.
launcher from Four Musketeers got through near that red HQ and really wiped out all those carriers for Xenoblade. It's going to be really tough for them to rebound from that shock to their economy, as it looks like Four Musketeers is just going to snowball and take this map.
Yeah, it seemed pretty close early on, but Xenoblade's carriers just got wiped out, and because of that, they were unable to fight back in the game.
As we see those stripes turn blue, that means Four Musketeers has won this first map, taking us to 1-0 and now to star.
Yeah, both teams have an explosion of robots at the beginning. For Musketeers seems to be focusing resources at the top side of the map, taking control of the top right headquarters. We'll see if Xenoblade manages to launch a concentrated defense on the bottom left, and looks like they've taken control of the middle, and they're actually starting to take control of the blue headquarters too. Well, Four Musketeers drops their control of the top right headquarters, and it looks like Xenoblade, surprisingly enough, they lose control of the first headquarter, but they managed to bring it back at the end.
Yeah, this match on Star going a lot faster than the last one. Last time we saw a side flip. This time Xenoblade won all the initial conflicts, wiped out those carriers for Four Musketeers, and from there was really no looking back, as we see teasers of destabilizers and a couple boosters as well here in the final rounds as they look to capture those islands and take us to 1-1.
Yeah, but once again, we're at 1-1 at something fishy. We'll see what happens, as we'll see how these early fights end up going.
Well, that first fight was nearly exactly even. Xenoblade perhaps with a slight advantage, but now Four Musketeers bringing in a counterattack. We'll see if both teams keep producing launchers at the same rate to give us that sort of back and forth action we saw in the first match. Xenoblade with a slight advantage. Now Four Musketeers pushing a slight resource advantage for Xenoblade, as well as in terms of carriers with 25 to Four Musketeers only 15.
Yeah, Xenoblade seems to be slightly overextending when they win a victory. And because of that, Four Musketeers manages to send launchers quicker into the fight and manages to clean up.
Yeah, that resource advantage for Xenoblade, though, really paying dividends as they won the war of attrition with Four Musketeers. And even if they may have lost a little on extending after those initial conflict losses or victories, the economy advantage just carried them through. And it looks like they're going to take this map to bring us to 2-1 red.
Yeah, we'll see if red manages to win once again. As we'll see, oh, they actually have built an elixir wall, and we do see some of these stabilizers, but there's no units to attack. And we also see some boosters. Now we're on to possibly the worst map ever created. And I made this map, which is saying something.
Kind of looks like a fruit smile that got melted in the packet. Now we have an initial battle on top between blue and red. Xenoblade sneaking around the left side, going to decimate a lot of those carriers. But not a huge unit advantage, as blue actually has an advantage in resources as they bring their own attack to the right side.
And Xenoblade is down to 0 units left. It looks like, wow, Xenoblade was trying to attack the left side of the map. Four Musketeers actually launched a stronger attack on Xenoblade's headquarters and managed to take control.
Shocking. Again, we see that top side of Sweet Dreams really proves more important than the part near the actual smile, and perhaps not a smile on the face of Xenoblade as we go back to 2-2.
Now we're on to game 5. We have lines. An interesting map. We'll see how they manage to pathfind their way to the center, or if they choose to walk around the edge.
Yeah, a lot of teams in the early rounds for matches I watch really struggle to pathfind here. These semifinal teams really having no problems with it, as we see initial conflicts in the center. Perhaps a slight resource advantage for Four Musketeers, similar on units though.
Yeah, Xenoblade seems to have more units advancing towards the center of the map, but they're pretty spread out. If they can't manage to unite their units together in one concentrated front, they might end up losing some fights.
Interesting in that it improved unit harvesting or resource harvesting. We see Xenoblade 30, 40, 43 carriers, and it looks like that might be the difference in this map.
Yeah, it looks like Xenoblade continues to send launches over to the other side of the map, and while Four Musketeers only has 1 or 2 fronts attacking on the left side.
Really just some beautiful pathing from Xenoblade. Even with that huge abundance of carriers, they really had no problem harvesting resources and sending launcher after launcher to harass the lines of Four Musketeers. Just really looked like they dominated their way through this tie-breaking map.
Yeah, and it looks like a lot of the launchers, even though they're spread out, they managed to finally find their way together at the enemy team's headquarters and take control of the map.
Very impressive performance from Xenoblade. Definitely a tricky map to navigate. You don't want to sabotage your carriers harvesting with sending launchers through their ranks. We'll see if they can capture those islands in the center, and they do. And that'll bring the second semifinal for Xenoblade Game of the Year.
Yeah, Xenoblade improving their position from last week. And we'll see what happens in the final match, As
Saying
Xenoblade Game of the Year goes against Super Cow Powers,
wow, a
our defending
blockbuster final
champion.
here. You could really see these teams stood apart through the initial rounds. We'll see who can come out on top as we get a fresh set of maps.
And now we have on Battle Suns.
Wow.
I have no clue where that map came from.
This is a highly complex map, a huge cloud in the center. It's really going to come down to who can take advantage and scout out where these resources are located. As Xenoblade takes an advantage in the center of the map, but Super Cow Powers with an attack in the top right and center left. Looks like they're going to advance down and harass the carriers around that blue HQ. It's tough to see. It's so zoomed out, but
Yeah, it seems that both teams to be kind of spread out, but Xenoblade seems to be trying to take control more of the center of the map, protected by the clouds in the center.
it left him exposed on the left and right sides, though. Super Cow Power is really bringing a powerful attack and now a huge advantage in terms of units and also in resources. That's going to be tough to overcome for Xenoblade.
Yeah, Super Cow Powers now has way more resource gathering than Xenoblade. On the left side of the map, you can see a lot of those carriers as well. Xenoblade just lacks the same thing.
Yeah, those attacks from Super Cow Powers wiping out the units around the blue headquarters really just put their foot on this map and never look back. Looks like it might be a convincing win here for Super Cow Powers, as we don't know if they'll be able to find those islands in the clouds, but it doesn't look like it'll matter one way or the other.
Yeah, it looks like either way, they're probably going to win off of tiebreakers. Unless Blue manages to win due to more mana, no, it looks unlikely. And Super Cow Powers actually did capture some islands in the end and win the game early.
The first map win for them this time. Now we go to Spin.
Yeah, a very small map filled with currents and clouds. We'll see they actually end up focusing on the center of the map. where all
Combat in the center
resources
looks like an
sits.
advantage to Xenoblade Game of the Year. Units are identical at the moment, a slight lead in mana perhaps, but now the carriers of Xenoblade Game of the Year, if those can get back to the HQ, that could be a huge advantage for them. It looks like one of them threw their resources as Xenoblade now moves down through the center with a clear advantage in units and in resources. Let's see if they can put a chokehold on the HQ of Super Cow Powers, and it looks like they might have done just that.
Yeah, Super Cow Powers ended up trying to retreat with their robots, but because of that, they were unable to bring any resources back and defend any of their carriers with their launchers.
Even though the launchers of Xenoblade Game of the Year look a little confused in that right-hand cloud, it seems like it's too late for that to matter, as the lead is just insurmountable at this point for Xenoblade Game of the Year.
Yeah, it seems Xenoblade just took a more aggressive approach towards the center of the map, and that ended up making all the difference. And we'll see if they manage to capture any of the islands, or if we can just watch them move around for 2,000 rounds attacking clouds. That's also fun.
Yeah, these smaller maps, it looks like aggression sort of paying off, at least in this one, as Xenoblade wins those conflicts and wins control of those. I mean, I guess that's the only resources in the map, so that would make sense as why they got an advantage from that. But
Yeah, it looks like Xenoblade, even though they know there's an island, they're hesitant to capture it because it's right next to the enemy headquarters. They don't want to enter the attack damage radius.
looks like they do now, though, and it's going to bring us to 1-1. Wow, good finals so far as we move now into Lantern with big clouds in the center, currents facing toward the middle, as we see a combat in the middle now between Xenoblade Game of the Year and Super Cow Powers.
Yeah,
Super Cow
but-
Powers taking the initial advantage, but Xenoblade breaking through towards the red HQ.
Yeah, Xenoblade manages to use the clouds and sneak through the bottom side of the lantern. And because of that, they managed to actually take control of the middle of the map. We'll see if Super Power Powers manage to do anything, but they only have launch carriers alive, actually. They have one launcher alive. We'll see if it manages to do anything, but it's quickly wiped out by Xenoblade's launchers. And Xenoblade just has the only attacking units.
It was tough to see what was going on there in the initial stages of the map. It just looked like Xenoblade maybe attacked better in those clouds in the center. Not sure. They definitely broke through toward that red HQ, perhaps wiped out some red carriers, but now it looks like a convincing lead and a convincing map win for Xenoblade Game of the Year, lighting the way through this third map.
And this might actually be the first time we've seen Super Cow Powers lose more than one match in a series.
Wow.
And it looks like for once, Super Cow Powers is going to be on the back foot in the series. We'll see if the defending champion can manage to pull it out once again, or if we're going to have a new winner this year.
I wouldn't count them out just yet. I mean, we've seen a lot of unique maps here in the finals as we move now into hide and seek.
A very eccentric map. We'll see how they manage to deal with the resource gathering with some of the currents pointing out.
Okay, initial dash to the center looks like Xenoblade Game of the Year gaining position in that central cloud. A combat between launchers. It looks like a slight blue advantage. It might just come down to who can harvest their resources better in the back line, as red with an initial resource advantage, but blue with more carriers, not more launchers though, as Super Cow Powers looks to affect that back line.
Yeah, and we see the results of differing approaches. Super Cow Powers instantly dashed to the mana wall, completely ignoring the adamantium well, while Xenoblade focused on the closer adamantium well.
Yeah, Xenoblade with more carriers though, Super Cow Powers is really going to look to take some of those out with those launchers that have snuck through to the back line, and they're going to do just that. Although it's still a fairly close map, it seems like it could go either way. But now Xenoblade with no launchers, it's going to be tough for them to get back into this. As Super Cow Powers has 12, they have central map control, they have bottom map control, and even harvesting from those top wells near the blue HQs.
Yeah, Xenoblade is actually stormed out from mana balls because Super Cow Powers is taking control of the top mana ball. And because of that, Super Cow Powers actually manages to take control. Xenoblade with one lone carrier at the bottom of the map, stuck on the current. And it looks like Super Cow Powers is going to tie it up, make it 2-2 if they manage to keep this game out.
Wow, we go to 2-2 in the final. We promise this is not scripted by Ted Devs. And as Super Cow Powers takes control of the map, really a thrilling final so far. We'll see if they manage to find any of those islands and claim the island win.
Yeah, this map actually has a lot of islands that are deliberately hard to find. You have to seek for them, but they've been hidden.
Yeah, and even that final launcher in the bottom left for blue getting taken out, really just a stomping by Super Cow Powers. You can wonder whether it was due to combat or whether it was due to that elixir versus adamantium pathing you had mentioned before. But either way, it's going to come to 2-2 now.
And Super Cow Powers is rubbing salt in the wound, showing that we can use elixir, we can make these stabilizers, we can stabilize your entire thing, make your head corner unable to do anything. You see a lot of circles just overlapping on each other.
It looks like we're going to go to 2,000 rounds here.
Yeah, pretty difficult to actually find maps here. And now we're on to probably the prettiest map for nations.
These four nations are not living together in harmony. Let's start this fifth map. As the teams race toward the center, Xenoblade Game of the Year with a quick advantage, a dash toward the red HQs. We'll see if they can do any damage here.
Yeah, Super Cow Power is actually concentrating on their own nation, while Xenoblade taking an offensive approach at the beginning of the game.
I wonder if that'll cost them, or it doesn't seem like it has because they still got a carrier advantage as well. I wonder if Super Cow Power is perhaps being penalized for their initial passiveness as the teams duke it out in the center with Xenoblade Game of the Year still taking an advantage in those central combats.
Yeah, Super Cow Power seems to be defending pretty well in the top left part of the map, but Xenoblade's offense is just unrelenting. They just keep sending launcher after launching.
Yeah, teams are both even in resources as of right now, though, and with more launchers for Super Cow Powers, it's easy to see they can mount a counterattack in the center here. They have a slight deficit on carriers, but really they just seem to be duking it out in the center as both teams stay level on resources. Xenoblade Game of the Year with 20 more carriers almost, but fewer launchers.
Yeah, and it seems like Super Cow Powers' launcher seems to be taking full advantage of the clouds in the middle of the map. And it looks like Super Cow Powers is starting to take control of the islands.
Taking control of the center islands, that could be a win condition for them. But teams still fighting in the center. So many launchers trading blows. Looks like Super Cow Powers and Xenoblade both with a few amplifiers as well.
Yeah, we'll see if taking control of the islands ends up making a defensive difference for Super Cow Powers, as some of the units might be able to heal if they retreat.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they're doing that, but Super Cow Powers now with a 26-7 launcher advantage.
But
and they're going to
Xenoblade
move to
has
the
started
center.
making elixir. Xenoblade has started using destabilizers. We'll see if that ends up making a difference with the large AoE damage, but quickly, Super Cow Powers takes control of the middle island and the fourth islands.
And that looks like it's going to do it for Super Cow Powers.
Yeah, Xenoblade trying to take control of the middle of the map with destabilizers, but Super Cow Powers taking advantage of the opportunity, wiping out fourth islands and winning the match. Congratulations to our Sprint 2 winners. Once again, Super Cow Powers.
A truly hard fought final there, but man, both teams showing their prowess. Super Cow Powers coming out on top in a thrilling map 5. You couldn't have asked for a better final.
Yeah. Thank you guys all for watching. Tune in tomorrow at 7 p.m. for a surprise.
Yes, if you check Battlecode.org, you see there's a fun surprise waiting for you guys.
Yes.
On the comments page.
Look at play.battlecode.org. You'll notice a mysterious submission deadline.
Stay tuned.
But yeah, thanks for everybody for coming to Sprint 2. Thanks for everybody who got the bot in. And if you didn't manage to get a bot in, the qualifiers and the tournament are coming up. But besides that, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
You guys are pretty.